The sad poor man Zach Galifianakis, because he's like, it's like he looks kind of like him, but he's not as good an actor. It's like constantly make fun of
He is kind
him.
of that. He is kind of that guy. Zach Galifianakis is kind of the poor man Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, I was gonna say poor man Seth Rogen. I was gonna say.
Oh, come on. We don't put Seth Rogen on the same pedestal as Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of Zach Galifianakis. Like
Yeah, me too. I really
that
like him.
no, I know you are. We talk about this often. We're
Yeah,
live, by the way, just in case you didn't notice on the YouTube.
I
Um,
am.
okay, I just wanted to make sure you weren't going to say something racist like you always do.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm just forever blaming you for saying racist
yeah.
stuff.
Those
Um,
black people.
oh boy.
Careful.
V standards and practices, as if you don't say stuff normally like on the show
Yeah.
that would get us into trouble. Um, hey Mike, hey Sassy Squatch. Um, the thing with Zach Galifianakis that still I think one of my favorite jokes by him is when I have his live at the Purple Onion and then I have his actual Comedy Central presents, I think. And I think my favorite joke still to this day is like the first joke that he tells on the live at the Purple Onion, where he goes, "My name's Zach Galifianakis, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly."
Yeah.
And I was actually named after my granddad. My full name is, he's like, I get my middle name from my granddad. My full name is Zach Granddad Galifianakis. And
Yeah.
and then it just goes, I mean, like halfway through the special or whatever, it stops. He kind of stops being funny, I think, because he's funnier when he's not drunk, is the thing with Zach Galifianakis. Like once he gets drunk, he just starts getting like crotchety. And
I just watched that recently, the Purple Onion one, and
mm,
it's so funny. It's just like you said, like towards the middle, it gets so random.
he's
Like
just
he's
like
like he just talks
cussing
to
at the
some dude at
crowd.
the crowd. Yeah. He's like, "What are you?" He's like telling some dude in the crowd, like, "What are you doing here?"
This is the most exciting thing that's going to happen to you today. What are you,
Yeah.
like a dentist?
It's such it's like the poor guy, like he doesn't belong there, and then he's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, this guy told me about
He's
it."
like, oh, what you like me? What was your favorite part of Cold Mountain or whatever? I think that's the most obscure rap or movie of his.
Yeah, yeah,
But that back to be fair, back then that was like his only movie. I think back when that
right.
was recorded. Um, when when he's got his fake brother on the doing
Yeah,
the
Seth
little bits or
Galifianakis.
whatever. Yeah, and then he goes, what does he say? He's like, can you do that thing where you blur out my face and you
When they
make my
do,
voice sound like a monster, as if it's not like you don't know that it's him because it just he's like, yeah, we can do that, and then he's like, are you doing it?
the best is when the interviewer actually laughs at him. Like he's trying not to, like he says something and then he just laughs at him. Like he's not trying to be like deprecating or whatever, but he is. He's
I
just like,
forget what the joke is that he tells. He says something like he misspeaks, and he says, "Oh, he's like he broke. He not only broke God's law that day, or man's law. He broke God's law, Murphy's law,
Murphy's Law.
law and order.
Uh, oh
He
man.
not only broke God's law that day, Seth. He broke man's law as well. Um, All right, well, I guess we're here. We're doing this thing.
Yeah.
Let me do my shot and we'll get out of the way and then we can hear. I know you've had a busy week and I want to hear all about it. I'm very excited. Can everyone at
We're
home hear everybody?
I assume we're toasting to the results of the impeachment trial.
Of course. Naturally we are cheering. Hi Ryan, by the way, in the chat. I see you there. Um yeah, naturally we're cheersing to the impeachment trial even though we knew, I mean I could go on and talk about this. I had to give James a lesson in government and how the government works and how the Democrats made every wrong decision that you could possibly make in an impeachment hearing and over the course of this, and how they made every bad choice that you could possibly make. I'm reminded of Al Pacino's speech in Any Given Sunday when he's like, "I've made every wrong decision a middle-aged man can make." You know, and then the best part about that is like he proves what a great actor he is because he calls himself middle-aged, and like at that point he's already 80. I've made every wrong decision, so we're cheersing
That's a
to.
great Al Pacino, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. For
It's
many
spot on.
that movie came out so long ago, and like I used to have that. Oh fuck it, hold on. 4 more years.
Four more
The
years.
when I used to have it printed out and like on a piece of paper in tiny letters, kind of like a cheat sheet. I had the Peace with Inches speech, is what it actually is called. I had it printed out so I could open it up in the middle of a game, like at halftime when the team was down. And I'm like from a small little town or whatever that was just awful at every sport that it did. So, and I'm sorry to any of my, you know, hometown friends or whatever who are listening, but they just like never won games or whatever. And so I would always want to go into the. I wanted to have that cheat sheet on me if there was ever a moment where I could go into the locker room and be like, "You got to look at the guy next to you. Look at them. Look at the eyes. I think you're gonna see a man who will go the distance for you." You know. And
Right.
I wanted to have that ready, but I never got the chance. Nor did I really care because, like, I didn't. I'm gonna be honest. I never went to the fucking sports games or whatever back in my hometown. I
No,
didn't
why
care
would
enough.
you?
I was too busy. You know, like I know people want to hear like, "Oh, he was so busy plowing trim." Nope, wasn't doing that neither. I was like
I
at
was
home
gonna
playing
say
video
you're
games
getting
or
laid.
whatever.
No,
Nope,
no, that wasn't it.
I was totally at home. What was I doing back then? You know what? When I was a senior in high school, I
Wow.
did a thing. Well, it was between my junior and senior year. Yeah, it would have been the beginning of the year, January 1st. I said, you know what, my New Year's resolution this year is going to be, I am going to watch a different movie every day this year.
Mm.
And I could repeat movies, but I couldn't count them as my movie for the day. So every day I would go to my calendar and or I'd watch a movie and then I'd go to my calendar and write it down. But it had to be a different movie if I was going to write it down. Now, my
That's
first
cool, actually.
I did it. I did it. I made it through. And the worst part about it was, well, I actually got grounded. I was grounded for like a month, and so I'm like, well, fuck it. If I'm gonna be home, like that's how it started. Like that's my New Year's resolution. I'm gonna be,
Right.
but
All I did in high school was like smoke weed and skateboard, man. You definitely made more progress than I did. I
well,
like did class and just got high, and that was it.
that was only 365 days. Like of that was shit I was gonna do anyways. Like there were some days where I'm like, I can't watch that movie yet because I haven't watched it for my movie of the day calendar. I gotta wait till tomorrow to watch it if I'm gonna count
Right.
it. So I don't have time, which was not true. I totally had time, but like I don't have time to be watching two movies like in a row. Um, but no, when I went to see, it was the year Attack of the Clones came out, and I left school early, and that actually that day my dad's brother died, my uncle died, and he was very upset. But he had already promised that I could go watch Attack of the Clones at midnight. So he was like, "Listen, we're gonna go to the funeral. It's not until a couple days out or whatever." He's like, "But we're gonna head over that way tonight. But we're gonna wait till you get back. So like you don't have to miss your movie, whatever, whatever." So I did. I went and I caught my movie, but I hadn't watched a movie that day. So in a panic, like I bought my ticket for Attack of the Clones, and I'm like, all right, cool, we're gonna see this movie. And then I think my friend Timothy, he was like, well, what did you watch for your movie of the day? And I said, I didn't watch one. So I was like, I gotta go watch it. I gotta watch another movie while I'm here waiting for Star Wars to come on at midnight for my movie of the day because I can't miss out. So I went and actually caught. I had to go across town because like it was just there was nothing there at that movie theater that I was even half interested in. I wasn't gonna pay full price for a ticket, so I went across town to the cheaper theater, and I was like, I'll just watch Deuces Wild. So I actually watched
Oh
Deuces
yeah,
Wild, which
that's
was
a
a
good
great
one
movie.
with Wait, don't tell me. What's his name? Stephen Dorff, right? Stephen Dorff.
Correct, I believe. I believe that's correct.
Yeah. Did I
And
actually get
then
that right?
I
Yeah.
think so. And
For the first
I
time
was
in
gonna
forever.
pick the random people from it that like nobody remembers, like Johnny
The
Knoxville,
the only reason I watched that
Malcolm in
movie,
the
Deuces
Middle.
Wild, was because Stephen Dorff was in it, and at the time he was in Blade. Remember the original Blade with
Right, right, right. He was
Wesley Snipes?
The Frost
Yeah,
guy or
Deacon
whatever.
Frost.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and he was like the coolest. Like I thought, this guy, man, is like the coolest style. He has the coolest style ever in that movie at the time. I thought, which looking back, it was kind of like lame to like try to adopt that style. I was like, look, man, I was 16, all right, 16, so, but he was to me that was like cool. Like when you're a kid, you go, man, that's cool.
No, I mean,
Uh,
like, I'll go to bat for you, which I often do. I tend
yeah,
to, I tend to think that young V was cool, as cool, maybe a little less cool than the current V, but that's just with the times.
hmm
But I think
fair
Steven
enough.
Dorff in Blade is a pretty cool character to look up to. I'll take
Yeah, I
that.
agree. Yeah, he was like the leader of the vampires, and that was back
Yeah.
when vampires were cool, man. Now they're just like gay, twinkly, sparkly.
Well, as I
What do you call?
recall,
What do you
yeah,
call it?
yeah. They were vampires are now like an LGBT icon, kind of like the Babadook. The Babadook is a LGBT icon. I don't know why, but he is.
I don't even know what the Babadook is. I've never even heard that term before.
It's a horror movie. You wouldn't get it. Like
You
you're
wouldn't get
we're
it.
talking about Blade, how Blade was your favorite movie or whatever, or how you really like Blade, and then I'm like, you wouldn't like horror movies, you fucking normie.
Is Blade? Would you consider Blade horror? Is that considered horror? I would say action.
There was
Although I don't know, that's a good topic, huh? Because the difference between Blade and like Underworld, right? Underworld. Remember
was
that one with
Underworld. Yeah, of course I remember with Kate Beckinsale, with
yeah, and the
Shake with
leather.
Master
She
Shake.
had she had the leather. Yeah, Master Shake. Yeah, and he does the backflip and shoots at nothing.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I consider Blade like an action horror. Same
yeah,
thing
yeah.
with Underworld. You know what I did with Underworld? When I was at Fort Hood and we were working like stupid hour days. This is before I was supposed to go on my second deployment, but I dipped out early. I was like, oh, I'll just re-enlist and I'll go somewhere else. And then I ended up going to Fort Riley, right?
hmm
And that's where
Where
V and I
that's when
met.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's where we met.
it's a good little
Well,
origin story. The fake origin story is way better. Uh,
yeah,
but no, I used to like go to the movie theater just to sleep because I had roommates who were constantly partying, like constantly. And which was awesome for a while, but then after like at a certain point I'm like, look, man, we've been working like 18, 20-hour days. I'm trying to come home, get my underwear and freaking pass out, and you guys are partying, which is like a first world problem, right? And then
right.
so I would go to the movie theater, pay the $8, and I would sit and I'd watch a movie and fall asleep. And then like the ushers would come in and be like, "Hey man, you gotta go. Like how long have I been here? What year is it?"
Yeah.
But I fell asleep during one of the underworlds. I don't remember what it was. Like I remember I went in there and I thought, "All right, I'm gonna catch this movie." I was out like immediate, like in the previews, and like I'm a shitty sleeper, so I snore and drool and shit
Right,
all over
right.
the place. And like I'm sure the people next to me were like, "This dude, come on, man.
Yeah,
I
what an
came here to watch a
asshole.
film."
They're all trying to dissect the movie and look for cinema and like, you know, to
And then
the
there's
underworld,
me.
the
Yeah,
underworld
yeah. Some
movie.
some dudes in there, some movie snob. He's like,
Yeah.
"All right, let me get my notepad." Like, all right, okay. There's the cinematography is on point.
Yeah.
So what did you do this week, V? Let's talk about you. I've done a lot of talking already. Let's hear what you did this week, Mr.
Well,
V.
I started a diet actually this week. Um, I'm doing this like no carb, high protein diet and like trying to like exercise every day. So get my fat ass outside and like, become active or whatever. But I think it's mostly motivated by the fact that like, Taka-chan, my ex, basically told me that I was unattractive and overweight. So I'm basically getting in shape out of like spite right now. So like what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get in like really good shape. Like my motivation like literally is to like get in such good shape that I can like snub women,
Right,
And like
right.
I haven't done that in years, like since I was in the army when I could just be like, oh, I'm not interested in you, whatever. Or like, have you ever turned a girl down for sex and like it's just like this amazing feeling, like you feel like so superior. Like I don't, me, man, I'm like all about superiority and all
Sure.
that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a firm believer that society doesn't want equality. We want superiority.
Yeah.
And so my goal with this diet is just to get like in ridiculous like V ab shape, like every like I don't care about like getting strong or whatever. I just want to be in like such good shape, like what do you call it, like the glamour muscles, I guess you could say, so that like I'm super appealing, to the opposite sex, and then when they approach me I act like I'm not interested. Like my goal is just to like be a dick, to like women. Like it's I know it's probably sounds messed up. I know our listeners are probably going, "What an asshole." That guy like
I
the
think
only
they would
reason
have
I'm
like.
trying
I
to
think
get
most of our fan base, like all 8 or 9 of them, or my mother, has already created this opinion of you, and they've already got it in their set in their
it's
minds
already
or
like
whatever.
in there, yeah. And so that's kind of like the goal. But then there's this other thing that I've really been thinking about. And I've dated a lot of women in my life, and like done the whole, well, and so like there was something I was thinking about the other day, and like I've been with like a few whatever relationships and what have you. But whenever I'm in a relationship, I've never actually cheated on a girl. And like I've always been pretty faithful. I've been cheated on, but I've never actually cheated on a girl. And so I've always considered myself like pretty faithful. So I started thinking about that. I was like, you know what? I think I need to do that like as kind of like a bucket list thing. So I think like the next relationship that I get into, my goal is to like cheat on her. Is that is that
I'm, you know what? At this point, like, it doesn't surprise me what you just said. In any way,
yeah, because I've never done that before. I've never
so
had that
as
Now
your
I've been
as your
like the other
attorney,
man. Yeah. Yeah.
as your attorney,
Here we
I
go.
have to recommend, and you can't hear it, but I'm playing the Peace with Inches music from Any Given Sunday. The fan at home can hear it. So that whole time you were talking, it sounded like you were giving your speech, like
The
Al Pacino
manifesto.
was.
Yeah, the manifesto.
Uh,
This is what I need to do. Right.
so as your attorney, I would
Mhm.
recommend, if you've got to do it. I'm a huge advocate for fidelity, right? For being faithful to your partner. So
Right.
what I would recommend doing, as your attorney,
Mhm.
is find a chick that you just don't give a shit about, and who is like also not that interested in like an honest relationship, or who's just like kind of into you. Do it, like get into a committed relationship with her, and then immediately cheat on her, and
But
then
I feel
and then
like,
break up with her.
but I feel like the like that kind of isn't like I
In the
get what you're
spirit of
saying.
what you're
Like
doing.
it's not in the spirit of yeah, because like then it's kind of like it doesn't have the full effect that I want. Like I've been cheated on plenty of times, and I've been like the other man in a lot of like even like affairs and whatnot. Like I've been the other man. You know all this, but I've never actually been the one that like just outright cheated. And like I want to experience that feeling when I'm like caught.
But you're
you know, like I want to experience that, and I want it to be like the experience where the girl is actually upset. Like she's like mad. Like I don't want the girl to be like, oh, what a surprise, you cheated. I want her to be to like show up and go, oh my God, you're banging my sister, and I'm like, oh,
mm,
she, I don't know, I wasn't, pull my pants up or whatever. But
I get it. I get
you
what you're talking
get what
about.
I'm saying? Like that feeling I've never experienced, and I've never had to like sneak around or like I want to see how far I can push it to the point where it's like, am I gonna get caught? Like I want to experience that, and I know that's obviously very devious and probably like makes me a super
Like
reprobate.
yeah, I was gonna say a miscreant. Um,
Yeah,
the gosh, V, you're better than that.
you think?
Like, I don't think anyone is surprised. Like I said, I don't think anyone's surprised by that. But at the same time, I gotta be the voice of reason
Of this
here,
reason.
and I gotta tell you, V, I don't expect more of you, but I hoped more for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you need to.
Yeah.
Here's what you do: go get Desert Trash, and then get into a committed relationship with her. Let her think that you love her, right? Like get like really like start buying her flowers and buying her nice things and shit, and like taking her out in public. Not like where you live, because you don't want people to see her, right? Um,
Well,
but like somewhere else where you're never gonna be and where you're never gonna develop relationships. Take her there, and then like really get her to thinking like, this is a real thing. Maybe we're gonna get married. Maybe we're gonna settle. Like drop hints and shit. Like,
mhm.
I'm getting a little old. I'm getting up in age. I'm thinking about maybe planting some roots here. Like, and then do it, because then you're not really missing out on anything. You know what I'm saying? And then and then she can still be devastated, right? Because I mean, she was really into you, right?
Yeah, well,
Right.
not anymore though. I'm on the block list for her. The last time, like that girl wouldn't even take my calls at this point. Like she literally hates me, and it's
Mm.
because. And here's the thing. Remember, I said I've always been on the other end of the cheating. Well, she's cheated on every single guy like that she's ever been with me, and
Ah.
like to the point where like her baby's daddy, like here's a little side story about Desert Trash.
Mm.
I know we talk about
I like these desert
I
trash
know we
stories.
talk about Desert Trash a lot and we never really kind of discuss. So I got back from the military, right? I got back to California and I moved into this little place. And she was like the first person I called. I was like, "What have you been up to? Like, come out. I'm living in this little trailer out in the middle of nowhere. You know, you can come hang out or whatever." And so immediately she just like gets a ride, like some friend of hers. Like she doesn't even have a car. Her friend drives her out to the desert where I'm staying, which was literally like the middle of nowhere. Like I'm living in this trailer. It was basically like a mobile home like near the mountains. So I'm doing like the hermit thing or whatever. So she comes out and she stays like a week and like doesn't leave. And so at that point, I'm kind of like sick of her. Like, oh, okay, when are you gonna leave? Like, kind of hinting, you know. And finally, the last day that I kind of got fed up, I was like, look, man, you gotta go. Like, don't you have like a family to go back home to? Like, don't you have like people that like are wondering where you are or whatever? And she goes, well, yeah, you know, my husband and my kids probably are wondering. And I was like, what? Like you're married now and like have like I had no idea about any of this because I hadn't seen her in 6 years since before, you know, when I was in the military. And so all this new information, I was like, look, you gotta go. And I was like shamed. Like I felt like I can't believe I was a part of this. Like like obviously it wasn't that big of a deal, but I was kind of like insulted that she never told me any of that. So that was kind of like the first draw or whatever, but she's cheated on me with literally every guy. Like every time I show up and I'm like, hey, how you been? Like, let's booty call, you know, whatever. She always jumped on it. And like there was this point where she like wised up and was like, "You're just an asshole," and like it's
Like, how
really
long
like
did it take her though?
well, it gets worse, you know. Like she had an abortion of
Oh,
mine.
that's right. I remember that
Yeah, and
story.
so after that, it was kind of like, never again. I'll call you, and she hasn't. And like I'll be honest with you, I've messaged her a few times since then. Like, hey, what are you up to? You know what I mean? But no reply. So I don't think I think I've been to. I mean, I'm definitely if there's a hell, I'm definitely going to it for the way that I've treated women over the years. But I still want to continue that pattern. I figure that like, you know, why change? You know, if anything, just enjoy, like embrace who. Like here's my this is my mantra for those of you who are listening who admire me, which I doubt are many, maybe one out of you, at least one. If you're a certain way and people consider you a reprobate as they do me, then just embrace it. You know what I mean? Like enjoy that and like, you know, be who you are and like do whatever it is that you want, you know. And then you know, when it comes time to be at the pearly gates and you know, St. Peter's there and he's going, look, we're gonna open. He pulls out this big old book, and it's just like you know, a huge, ridiculous amount of things that you've done over time. And that's when you go, look, I want to talk to your manager because this can't be, you know, this can't be it. And you know,
um,
you'll be so good at negotiating that you know you can get past all that.
you need to write a self-help book. Um, how to
Yeah,
how to bang desert trash and still get into heaven. By
exactly.
Ryan Villalobos. Uh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we got some new fresh meat in the chat. Welcome Megabit Banshee and welcome John as well. He said "Dirty Girls for Life." So,
There's
and
someone out there.
Ryan said so. I guess I'm the only one who admires his lack of morality. See, I told you there were. You have more fans than just me. You're just
Oh, what a surprise.
yeah. Well, I paid a lot of money for people to come into the chat and say nice things about you. Uh,
So, what are we talking about this week? I know we talked about it, but I'll be honest,
Pay attention.
I didn't do any Wikipedia this week. I didn't research.
Really? You're
I
putting
didn't
the
do it.
weight. You're putting it all on me today.
I'm putting it all on you, and then I'll just add like quips. You know, quips.
Oh my word. Well, I didn't. You know, here's the thing. I also didn't. Well, I studied the wrong stuff because I thought you were studying what I told you. I was like, hey, let's cover. This is what I do to you. Is I'm like, hey,
So
we're
we,
covering this so that you study that topic, and then I study all the supplemental stuff because what happens is I'm always like, so V, what do you know about Bleh. And then you're like, well,
Yeah,
according to Wikipedia, blah blah blah.
yeah, yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, did you know? And like I do these like I'm the quip guy, but I was
Well,
not prepared. I didn't do the right study, so you
both
fucked
blew
me.
it.
You fucked me, V.
I mean, I could pull up Wikipedia and
Oh gosh.
we could talk
Um,
about. Tell the audience what we're talking about before we get into that.
Golly, V. All right. Well, we're talking about. I don't know if we're talking about this week because you didn't study. So we give this 0 Bigfoots. No, today we're talking about. We wanted to talk about the plague, right? We were going to talk about specifically, as many of
Controvirus.
you know, right? As many people know, if you've paid any attention to the, you know what? Fuck it. We did a lot of research on the impeachment hearings. Let's just talk about that because we know that, right? No,
Yeah,
the coronavirus, right?
the
The corona. We're
coronavirus.
talking
I
about.
thought it was the controvirus for the long. I remember the game.
I did too. I thought the same thing. I think I even like. I'm sure if you pull up my any chats that I've done with anybody, like they'll be like, oh, I remember he fucking said controvirus because I was. Like I was an idiot and I didn't I read the headline and I was like, oh cool, another virus that from China, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they all come from China, as I come to find out. Like I did, because I was researching the other viruses, the other plagues that happened in history. I was like, I gave you one, and I studied like 40 other ones, and then you didn't even study the one. But no, I know enough about the coronavirus. I think I can hear this show myself today. And
I
you
got
can,
it. I got
you
it.
can you can just be funny. That's what you can do today. No, so yeah, we were going to talk about the plague, right? So plagues
Yeah, yeah.
in general. But specifically, we did want to talk a little bit about the coronavirus because it's sweeping the nation, quite literally, sweeping the globe. It is it's a national virus, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It's a national virus, V.
It's a well, is it a regional?
You went the wrong way. You were supposed to say an international.
International, yeah, international,
I,
international.
See, I can't even set you up for jokes. We're doing horrible today. Let's just
I
do
know.
over. Let's do over. So what's this about desert trash I hear and your diet or
Okay.
something?
Yeah.
By the way, is that the keto diet that you're doing?
I don't know. I'll you know what all it is really is just like I'm eating a lot of fish and like salads and like nuts. And I know you want to make a joke right there, but I'm not gonna let you. So you know the funny thing is like it turns out that sardines are like this superfood. And so like I'm just eating sardines like they're going out of style. Like I like for lunch I had sardines and then literally I just opened the can with the oil and everything. I just eat it straight out of the can. Like I don't know if there's another way you're supposed to eat sardines, but that's how I eat sardines. And like, man, it's delicious. I'm like shocked at how good they are. Like sardines, bro, like superfood. You ever heard that word,
Mm.
superfood?
Yeah, I'm aware of it because there was an episode of Teen Titans Go where Robin was talking about uh, avocados being superfood. So
Right. Yeah.
of course I know what a superfood is.
Food too.
Right?
Yeah. The avocados are a superfood. It's absolutely
Um,
right. So you want me to do? Let me do the Wikipedia. I pulled it up. I'll do the definitions and read the brief. I'll pretend that I'm not reading, but I'm actually reading, so the audience thinks that I like know about what I'm talking about, and then you can add to it. So the coronaviruses are a group of viruses that cause disease in mammals and birds, right? We're mammals, so it affects us.
oh
In
right.
humans, yeah, yeah. In humans, the viruses cause respiratory infections, including the common cold, which are typically mild. Weirdly, I've been having a lot of sniffles. I hope I don't have this shit. Rarer forms such as SARS. Oh yeah, remember SARS,
I
dude?
do. It's Southern Asia or something.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no. Severe acute respiratory.
It's
That's what
Southern.
it is. Yeah, well, I mean, it might as well be. Hey,
Yeah,
while you're talking, because you were talking about eating nuts, I'm gonna put on
yeah,
house music in the background. Is that okay?
yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so
and then
yeah,
also there was another one. It was the Middle East respiratory.
yeah.
Yeah, yep, that's the other one.
Mhm.
But go ahead. I've got the house music playing for you.
Okay, so and the novel coronavirus causing the 2019 to 2020 Wuhan, which is actually like also having to do with kung fu, I think.
Wasn't that
But
also a song by Busta Rhymes?
no,
Wuhan,
yeah, Wuha.
Wuhan.
Yeah, I got you all in check. That was Wuha, Wuha, Wuha. That was a good one, man. Remember
That
that?
is a good track.
So the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak can be lethal, apparently. So this is like a big deal. It's like a lot bigger deal than probably we're, concerned. Everybody's so concerned about the damn trial and all that shit, and then we've got this corona out virus thing. So in cows and pigs, coronavirus can cause diarrhea, which whatever, they poop a lot anyways. In chickens, they cause an upper respiratory disease. There are no vaccines or antiviral drugs that are approved for the prevention of the treatment, which is totally wiggity, because if you get it, you're kind of fucked, huh? Coronaviruses are viruses in the subfamily Octocoronavirinae. That was a tough word, but I think I nailed it. In the family of Coronaviridae.
Let's
In the
hear
other,
from the judges in the comments. Give him out of a 10. How did he do on that word?
did I nail that? I, I think it was actually Orthocoronavirinae,
Let's go with the
right?
second one. Give him out of 10. Judges in the comments, go ahead and give him a rating.
So let me continue here. They nailed it. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. In the other, in the order, Nidovirales. That one I probably fucked up, to be honest. Coronaviruses are enveloped viruses with a positive sense single-stranded RNA genome and with a nucleocapsid of helic symmetry. Damn, that's a fucking mouthful right there. The genomic size of coronaviruses ranges from
A mouthful,
approximately,
V?
yeah. Well, when you got the oral fixation as I do.
This is a horrible house music thing.
Is I can't hear it, so I'm just
Well,
imagining that
you're gonna have to just imagine. So,
it's house music is right? Or is it
well, the one that I pulled up was not, but like I'm limited on what I can do
yeah,
because
yeah,
because
standards
it
or
automatically plays. So I kind of have to just hope that the guy who put it on here is as much of a dick as I am. Like, and he picked the most ridiculous one.
right. Okay, so the genomic size of coronaviruses ranges approximately 26 to 32 kilobases. Whoever fucking knew about that term of measurement. The largest for an RNA virus. So this is a big ass fucking virus. The name coronavirus is derived from the Latin corona, meaning crown or halo, which refers to the characteristic appearance of the virus's particles, the virions, as it would be. They have a fringe reminiscent of the royal crown or the solar corona. So that's the gist of what Wikipedia tells us. I know it was obvious that I was reading it, but I was trying to like pretend that it
No,
was.
I know. I wasn't going to tell anyone at home
Yeah,
though.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
no, that's what I'm here
Yeah.
for. So I'm going to do a little summary real quick because what we do,
Layman, the
right?
layman's.
What we do here is like we remember we kind of brought this new knowledge to everybody in the world because everybody thought that MK Ultra was just one thing, but in reality we
Yeah,
told them, we were like, hey, it's 149 things
right.
subproject. Nobody knew that. Nobody in the entire world knew that. So our entire us bringing that to the people was extremely
Hmm.
important.
Yeah, yeah.
If not for us,
We're
they
doing
would have
God's
never
work.
known. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'd like.
exactly.
We're doing God's
um
work.
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break it down, uh, because we're going to kind of get into some of this stuff. The coronavirus, right? Coronavirus is everything from like, it's a series of viruses, right? You kind of talked about that. You touched on that. Remember
Hmm.
the H1N1 virus, the swine flu,
Yeah, yeah,
a few years ago,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then the bird flu, and like a dozen other, like you hear about these horrible nasty flus, the flu in general, the common cold, like I mean these are all coronaviruses, right?
Hmm.
um so when you hear coronavirus now, you're like, oh, it's this new crazy thing. No, it's not. It's been around for a long time. And even if you go and you look at the US patents, there is in 2015 the United States filed uh, the patent for a coronavirus, right?
Hmm.
um, and that kind of spawned because they were granted the patent in 2018, so a couple years ago. That spawned a lot of controversy and fear of like conspiracy that the United States had actually created the coronavirus as we know it today with this outbreak from Wuhan, China.
Yeah,
And
watch China.
so from now on, if you don't say it like Wuhan for the rest of the episode, you have to drink like like our Slenderman episode.
Hmm.
Um, the coronavirus that we're aware of from there, that is now currently a pandemic. It, people connect it with that one that was patented in 2015 and approved in 2018. It's not. It's a different strain. Now this one, the interesting thing about this particular strain, and I'm not a chemist, I'm not a virologist, I'm not even remotely scientific. I mean, I'm a host on a program about Bigfoot's penis, so like any credibility I have as any kind of ist is shot from the get-go. And so like, but I can tell you what I know from what real scientists have said. And what happens is with this one is they have no idea where it traces back to. Like they have no idea what, they assume it came from an animal, right? And the typical vectors is what they're called, like the transmitters. We were trying to come up with the word the other day, and for fleas and rats and mosquitoes and stuff, those are called vectors, things that transfer the virus from one host to the other. Right. And it took me a while to remember it, and I was struggling to come up with it earlier. And the four animals that came up, it's convenient for anybody who's like studying this because you don't even need a mnemonic device, because it's bats, cats, rats, and camels.
Oh, that's easy to remember.
Yeah, those are the animals that typically are the problem children for spreading viruses.
Did you say camels at the end? Though? That seems like so out of place. Well, it seems like it doesn't like match the others.
Right, but it's funny because you can be like, oh, well, the Middle East is also a problem with all these viruses too. And like the only animal that they have over there, that like when you think desert and you think Middle East, you're like, oh, camels. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's because they're out there playing grab ass and
the camels or the camels or the
everybody in the Middle East, probably all in all.
The entirety of that region is just
just blanket the whole
festival of grab assery.
Exactly.
But yeah, those are the animals that typically do it. And what happens with them, and what they think happened, or one of the origin conspiracies, right, is that this one came from bats, because the folks over there in Wuhan were eating bat soup. And like you could see these pictures that were being shared for a while of just like a bat sitting in a bowl of soup, and it was like the laziest bat soup I've ever seen. Now, for a full disclosure, I've not seen bat soup, but I have seen this type of bat soup, which was just like a soup with a bat resting lazily in it.
I have to Google this now.
Yeah, you got to look up this bat soup, right? And so they think that now, if you I mentioned it briefly earlier, and Sassy Squatch made a comment, yes, all from China, which is crazy. It's not a joke. Like every nasty like pandemic type flu that we see every year, it seems like, comes from China, right? SARS, the bird flu, swine flu actually came, I believe, from Maryland, but a lot of these really nasty viruses come from China, which is, and even dating back to the bubonic plague, it actually started in China. So you kind of gotta, if you go to the CDC website, I know I sent this to you earlier, it says like things not to do, and it said don't go to China.
Yeah,
period. And
the first thing on the list.
Yeah, and then also it goes into a thing like this whole woke thing where it's like don't insult the Chinese, don't blame the Chinese, don't blanket accuse the Chinese. Yeah, the I can't even beat you. I know I did. You beat me to it. But
I couldn't think. Is there another epithet that we can use other than Chinaman? Like that blankets all Asians for me.
Well, yeah, but
it doesn't matter where you're from in Asia. You're just a Chinaman to me.
We're focusing on the Chinese.
Yeah, the actual Chinaman.
Like technically, there's really nothing. Or you could be like the beloved character from, or the beloved protagonist from everybody's favorite Orwellian novel 1984, when he refers to the butler as possibly a Chinese. So I mean, you could call a man just a Chinese, and people would be like, "How dare you?" And you're like, "No, this is a George Orwellian thing from 1984."
It's not like it's so much funnier for some reason too, because you could say he's a Chinese person, but if you say he's a Chinese, there's something about leaving those extra words out that make it seem a little bit more offensive.
It makes you a lazy racist, right?
He's probably a Chinese.
He's clearly a Chinese. Whereas like somebody who and you're like, I don't know if I should be offended at that. And then like, but if somebody says, well, he's a Chinaman, whoa, hold on. Yeah, you can't do that. You got to say he's a Chinese, and then you can be like, well, no, I just read a lot of literature that is actually like lauded as one of the greatest pieces of literature in American history, or in modern history, not just American.
You know, the best
it's a
thing
national
about China,
treasure. It's the 1984 is a national treasure. V.
What I always try to like have yet to figure out is why
it's a national treasure.
No, why is it that like okay, and this is borderline joking, but it's kind of serious too, is like why is it that like a lot of our slang terms for like the penis are like Japanese and Chinese words, like wang and dong, and they all sound that way.
Well, what
and
else?
Even their names, like it makes me go like what, like if you were like okay, let's say you're an American Chinaman. And you have a child and you're thinking about naming him Wang or something, like wouldn't it occur to you to go, we probably shouldn't name him Wang because it's a colloquialism or whatever, like around here people refer to their junk as their Wang. So
well, what
don't
about
name
people
your
who
kid
name their kids like Americanized, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant families who name their child Peter, or or
I guess that's a good point.
So no, I'm Pedro, or even like Hispanic families who name their kids Pedro, and you're like, what? Oh, that's Peter. That's penis in Spanish.
Yeah.
That's a penis joke. That's a national penis joke.
What about that? Oh man, now I'm thinking of all these funny Chinese jokes. Remember that thing on the news where that lady got tricked into reading all the funny Chinese names about the plane flight? It was like "we too low." And holy fuck.
And
that was so good. What was the third one? It was
we too low. My God. Holy fuck. Something Wong.
Yeah, something Wong. That was the. Oh man, I'm definitely going. If racism is the. I mean, if racist jokes are going to put me in hell, then I'm screwed, man. Because those are great.
Ryan says in the chat, I once knew a Chinese midget. Her name was Tiny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that one.
Oh, man.
I'll have
in the
to use
chat
that.
making us say the racist stuff so that they don't have to.
I'm going to have to use that. I appreciate it. Good joke.
You know what?
Yeah,
my dad,
carry on. Continue. I know we had to get out all the jokes all at once.
Let's get all the racism out real quick.
There were so many that we had to like. It was like an overload. Like we had too many jokes about Chinese.
Well, you know what? Like the thing about the Chinese people is there's just so gosh dang many of them that like you have to like you kind of overload on jokes, right? Because like there's so for like disproportionate amount of no, I guess it'd be a proportionate amount of jokes, right? People are always complaining about a disproportionate amount of da 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 da. But in reality, like coming up with racist jokes about the Chinese is kind of like proportionate to their if you're like, oh, that's too many racist jokes about the Chinese. You're like, no, that's a proportionate amount of racist jokes.
What do they say? Like
Chinese.
Most people are in China. Like most people in the world are in China.
Well,
like you think there's a lot of people in the world. Well, most of them are in China.
I blame and Chinese to blame, and China's to blame for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what the hell were we talking about? Have you ever seen a Chinese without a mask on? I almost got away with it without laughing, but you screwed me on that. Have you ever seen them though without the mask on when they're walking around in public over in China? Like they always I don't think I've if I didn't see them in America, like pictures of like tourism magazines or whatever of like, oh, come see diverse New York, come see
Yeah, yeah.
diverse. It's never like diverse Minnesota because there's no diversity in Minnesota, but like come see our diversity and what a beautiful, lovely, diverse city New York City is. But like, and then you see them without the masks on, and it's like they've got the tan lines or whatever of like this, like they're super tan, and then
Yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden it comes down here and it's like ultra white, and you're like, I thought you were Chinese. No, my mom's white. Um, but yeah, because they've been wearing those forever because the pollution is so bad over in China that and the disease on top of that. You never see sick people quite like you see sick people in China. And now we're seeing the reason for like when you start to look at these statistics, right? And you're like,
Mhm.
where did the bubonic plague originate? You know,
Yeah,
well, oh, we think of that as typically like a European thing, right? Just off,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, when you
yeah.
think Europe, you think bubonic plague, Europe. It started in China, right? You think of
Right.
like bird flu, China, SARS, China. So,
Yeah.
this new one, the new coronavirus, China, is from eating fucking bat soup,
Yeah,
right?
bat
Like,
fucking soup.
so
Like what? Like what, dude? And if you Google, like I
somebody
Googled that, and like the first thing I saw in the Google images is this bat, like looking like it's sitting in a hot tub, like, but it's soup, like, and it's like a full bat. It's not like, oh, they cut down the wings and they put the wings
yeah,
in, and
like
then
I
they
said, he's just
like
lazily
make the meat.
resting there.
They just put the bat in there. It's like you're literally eating a whole bat. Like who does that? Like what? What
Well,
do you, like,
China,
there's no like culinary act going on. They just toss a bat into some broth, and here's your meal. Here's your
you know who does that?
here's your
I
soup.
was actually in a restaurant one time, and um, I looked over at the table next to me, and I saw a bowl of bat soup, and I look up, and there he was, a Chinese, right in front of me.
I like it makes me think of that Norm Macdonald has a joke where he tells someone he goes I had monkey brains once and they go really and he goes yeah mine was stupid. Like,
Boy,
oh man, that's funny. It's like, it sets them up because they're always like, what? What was that like? They're always like shocked to find out that it was just a joke.
and like you'd think you'd be prepared for that with Norm
Yeah,
Macdonald, right?
right.
Um, so what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
When I was in, I've been to a lot of Asia actually. I've been to
You've been
Japan
to
a
a
few.
lot of Chinese.
Yeah, the Chinamans. I actually was in Taiwan. I had a girlfriend for a long time in Taiwan, and I was in Taiwan for about 2.5 months. And she liked to do this thing to me where she'd like give me something to eat, but then she wouldn't tell me what it was until after. And in Taiwan, they have this thing called the night market where it's basically like after 7 o'clock, the whole street is just this big market of like food chains. And I don't mean like fast food. I mean like it's literally every Wang.
It's every Wang Dong and
Yeah, exactly. And so every single one of these stalls sells some, whatever kind of food. And it's usually like either fried food or like noodles or soups or whatever. And so this one night we went out and like you just walk down the street, right? You're literally like walking in the middle of the street. Like imagine walking in your busiest road in your town and everybody's just crowded in the street. And now Taiwan, they have like, it's like island. So literally, it's so condensed in the cities that like the buildings are part of the street, right? Like there's no like sidewalk. It's like you walk in the street to like, get where you're going. And it's like overpopulated too. And the worst part about it is everybody rides around on these scooters and they're like complete assholes. It's like the most dangerous thing. I remember riding on the scooter thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna lose my life in Taiwan. But anyway, I digress.
if
So
you
we go
die in Taiwan, do you die in real life?
so we go to this place, right? And we sit down, and she's feeding me this food, as she would do. She'd do this cute thing because I wasn't good at chopsticks, which I still am not. She'd get it with the chopsticks, and then she'd feed it to me, which and it's actually it was really cute. She puts her hand underneath the chopsticks so that it doesn't fall, and if it did, it falls in her hand, and then she hands the food to me to my mouth with the chopsticks, right? And it was kind of like this cute thing that she would do, and she was really really attractive actually. So it's kind of like, I was kind of what do you call it? entranced, I guess you could say. And so I would eat whatever she handed me, and usually it was pretty good. But she would do that, and then she'd tell me after, "Oh, you just ate like squid or something, right?" So this one time we're eating this soup, and she's like feeding me this like what I thought was tofu, and it's like red stuff, right? And she goes, "Here, try this," and I go, "Oh, that's kind of like really, really salty. Like that wasn't good, right?" And I go, "What was that?" And she goes, "Oh, that's pig's blood cake." Pigs,
Like,
like it's an actual thing. Like
well,
they
that's what I
have,
was gonna say. I was like, how did somebody go? You know what this needs more of? Pig's blood.
yeah,
Like,
pig.
I like cake, but let's see if we can add some pig's blood to it just to mix a little culture
They
in.
have a soup. They have like a soup that's got like pig's blood in it, and then they use like apparently pig's blood. I have no idea how the process, but it can be used similarly to like tofu. But it's disgusting. And then when I realized that, I was like, my God, like why would you give me that? Like what is wrong with you? Like I would never in my life, if somebody said this is pig's blood, try this.
You
So
know
what
what?
about you? What's the weirdest thing you've had to eat?
I I've eaten Chinese before. No,
Shiny.
no, no, no. I've a Chinese. That's why I fucked up my own joke. Um, I was thinking the whole time you were talking, I was like imagining her coming over with chopsticks with like a guy with a flaccid dick and like holding the chopsticks on the flaccid dick, like, here, try this. And then you're like, oh, what is this? Like, oh, it's so chewy. Um
Get in there.
like, turn around, let me try the other side. Let me try let me try some of the cake that he brought. Oh, that's ass. That's the gay guy's ass. Hey. No, I've eaten some weird shit. I think, gosh, I think like I've eaten scorpion before, right? Mike in Manitoba said that he's Canadian. He eats beaver. So see,
Well,
they've
like,
got the
come on.
good stuff up in
I'll eat
Canada.
beaver.
We've all eaten beaver. Yep.
Come on.
The No, and then there were some. I did want to touch on this real quick. There were some racist jokes that we have to tell in the chat. I don't want Ryan and Megabit to think that we ignored them. I'll read one, you read the other one. It's above all the pukey faces that Sassy Squatch did.
Okay.
First time, Ryan says, first time I read low fat on the milk carton, I thought my dry cleaner had gone missing. Your turn.
Okay, which one am I reading? The when
The one
Asians
right
bow.
above it? Yeah.
Asians bow. I was like trying to read through the chat, so I actually missed it, and then I read it after you said it, and I'm like, oh. First time I read low fat on the milk carton, I thought my dry cleaner had gone missing. Is that the one that you just read?
Yeah, that's the one that I just read.
Okay.
Come on, you got to read the
Okay,
one
when
above it.
Asians bow, they're actually scanning each other.
I knew I wouldn't be able to get through that one. The other one I had practiced in my mind a few
I
times.
still like the tiny one.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one
It's a
too.
play on words, so you have to like appreciate it, you know.
Yeah, Mike said
Oh.
that you're not, as long as the beaver's not stuffed, it's good. As long as it's not a turduck beaver, right? Is that what they call it?
The turducken.
The turduck beaver.
Yeah, I've had that before. Pretty good, actually.
Turducken.
Yeah.
No, I've eaten scorpion before, which was pretty
Really?
good. Yeah. The thing about and don't run out and just eat any venomous thing that you find because I said this, but
Pick it up, flick around like
the thing about venomous versus poisonous is a lot of people are like, oh, how did you eat a fucking rattlesnake or whatever? Or how'd you eat a fucking scorpion or whatever? The thing is about like venomous doesn't really do anything as long as it doesn't get into your bloodstream. Poisonous doesn't really do anything unless it gets into your digestive tract, right? So this is not an exact science, right? But like poison into your bloodstream is like whatever, but venom into your belly is also like whatever. So you can eat certain venomous things with no repercussions. So
right.
I ate a scorpion, not like off the ground. I didn't pick it up and go, oh, this looks fucking...
What's
oh,
like
wow, I am
they
so
like
hungry
seasoned
right
it?
now.
What's that like? Just put like salt on it or something? Like was it seasoned? Like or did you just eat a
No,
scorpion?
oh
Like
no. I thought you said Steve Irwin. I was gonna be like, oh, good day, mate. No, hey, it's a scorpion. I'm gonna eat the scorpion. It was at a Japanese restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Of all places, and it was it was a buffet. But then they were like, hey, we also have these delicious. It may not have been Japanese. I was a kid, so
Right.
like I just
Was it
assumed it
Chinese?
was Chinese, Chuck E. Cheese, Vietnamese, whatever.
Was it one of
Um,
those E's?
uh, dirty knees. Um, let's just go all out here.
Yeah,
Neither one of us is running for political office or anything.
yeah, this is
But they
true.
they came out with a tray and they were like, "Hey, would you like to try scorpion?" And I was like, "Well, when in Rome or whatever, or
Yeah, yeah.
when in
When it's
Wuhan." And then
yeah,
and then I died a few days later of the
right.
coronavirus. No,
Well,
when I was in Iraq though, I did eat. They had like the guys who worked for us as laborers or whatever. They
the
came.
feet
They would
bread,
the what?
the feet bread or whatever, the bread that they
No,
make with their feet.
maybe.
I had
Maybe
that in
that's probably what
Afghanistan.
happened.
They make that like flatbread, and apparently they like step on it with their feet. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What
No,
were
I
you
don't
were
know.
saying?
It may have been. I didn't pay. I don't know the process in which it went through, but like I walked into the room at one point and they were eating this like whole chicken. They just had like a whole chicken with them and it was
Really?
cooked and everything. And I was like, oh, that looks delicious. And they're like, oh, and it was almost done or whatever. So I'm like, wow, are you bringing that tomorrow or whatever? And they're like, yeah, yeah, we'll bring an extra one for you. And I'm like, I don't need a whole chicken, but like, whatever, if you bring it, I'll give you the fucking $20, which was like a lot of
I'll
money
eat a
for
whole
them, I
chicken,
assume.
a
And
rotisserie chicken.
well,
Just eat
yeah,
the whole
but
thing.
it was like one that was cooked on the open air, but it was in the desert, so it was all covered in
Oh
dirt
yeah,
and
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
and
right,
smelled like
right.
burnt tire and all that. But
Hmm.
like, I was like so hungry at the time. I don't know why I was that hungry, and I probably regretted it the next day when they showed up with this whole chicken, and they were like, "Here's your chicken, and here's your bread. Go nuts." But I ate it, and I was like, "This better not give me dysentery or whatever." And then it did, and then I spent the
Oh
next
man,
like week shitting just nonstop,
that's
and it was
the
like
worst.
it was one of those things where I had to be like drinking water all the time while I was in the porta john because
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
I will die out here
Yeah, you'll die.
from
You'll
dysentery.
shit yourself to death. Yeah, that's
So
funny.
I
Well, I know
survived though.
you were talking about eating a scorpion, and I recalled when I was a kid, we had this girl in our class. She was from Papua New Guinea. Her parents were from Papua New Guinea, and they would always bring like weird shit, and it was always like chocolate covered ants or like some weird covered whatever grasshopper, and it was always some like weird insect. They were like, try this, like bees that are covered in honey or some shit. And like when I was a kid, I was like, whatever, dude, like chocolate, are you kidding me, But now looking back, like, man, that was like pretty gross, dude. Like eating ants, like I don't
um,
think I. Oh.
we do this a lot. There's a store not far from here, and this is a free plug for Jungle Gyms. It's like an international market. All right, and it's
Mhm.
called Jungle Gyms. And this is not like a joke. I'm not trying to goad you into saying like, is it more of a regional market? No, it's like
Yeah.
it's got all the. I've been trying all episode to do it, and you've done it like once. I've dropped like 3 or 4 of those. Um, but they've got like from all the different countries, they've got all the different foods and whatever, and you can go down and you can be like, well, I'm feeling like a little bit of Scotland today, and you can go buy a
Huh.
fucking haggis or whatever.
Haggis, right? Haggis,
Um,
yeah.
but they also have those little boxes of crickets that you can eat. Like you can
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
crickets, you can get the
Yeah.
centipedes, you can get the whatever, and they're all flavored like bacon, and then they're flavored for like
Bacon
they've got the
flavored
chocolate
centipedes.
covered, and then and then you sit there and you can just eat these crickets, and they're actually not terrible. Like if you can suspend reality for a minute and be like, oh, this is not a bug that
Yeah.
was probably crawling on like a dead animal when they caught it. Like, oh, let's serve
Yeah.
this, let's cover it in
Yeah.
bacon grease and send it to this market or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's probably. I mean, I've eaten some other weird shit, but I don't remember. I don't.
I definitely would never eat bat though. I would never eat. Like I don't care. Like, I mean, you'd have to pay me to eat bat. Basically, it'd have to be like a bet, and it'd have to be probably like upwards of like $500 at the least. $500, I'm gonna eat some bat, dude. I'll probably go. All right, I'll have like a piece of the bat, but I'm
Would
not
you
gonna eat
eat this bat though? Like, would you eat bat soup like this?
fangs hanging like that. That's looking at you with its teeth like out. That's when you go, "What, dude? It's a Dracula. This isn't a fucking bat. This is a
You know,
Dracula."
the funny thing about this is like we know, right, that these coronaviruses, right, are transmitted by what? Cats, rats, bats,
Mm,
camels.
yeah.
Um, typically, I mean, those are like the animals that the World Health Organization, the CDC, have labeled like, hey, these are the animals that will fucking get you sick with disease. and viruses that will likely kill and create this pandemic. Like, and then the Chinese, and then a Chinese is out there like in the kitchen, and he's like, "Hey, you know what would go great with this broth and jalapenos? A whole bat. Just put a whole bat in that sucker, and we'll call it a day."
Like, you remember that bat we caught in the attic the other day? Go get that bat we caught.
What did he ask for? Oh, what? Oh, well, give him the throw the. Where's that bat that we threw away the other day?
Do you want me to just like? Do you want me to like mince it? No, just throw it in. Just put it in the.
Should I
the
saute
broth.
it a bit? Should I bake him? No, just toss him in there. I guess I don't know. He's very unclear about what he wanted. He said something. He said a bat. He wanted bat soup. I don't know what that is. Throw a bat in the
Teeth
soup.
sticking up like. It's looking at like. Have you ever ate a fish that like the eye is still there, like the whole fish, and you're just like, I don't want that thing looking at me.
Yeah, you gotta like kind of like, hey, chop the head off and fucking try again, and then bring it back out to me.
Bring it back after it's not looking at me. But this is literally like its gaze is fixed on you. Like it's not like it's dead fish eye. It's literally like
they had the audacity to like put the hooks of their feet and their hands over the bowl like it's a prize from a cereal box or something. Like
it's like it's
hey.
waiting in the wall. That's what it looks like to me, is that it's like doing the backstroke or something. Like somebody's just like, it'll be funnier.
No, they're like give this bat a bath. That's what this one's called. Like, give him a bath. No, bats don't like bats. Trying to push him in the water like it's a cat, like you're trying to give your pet cat a bath or something.
And don't bats have fur too? Like, come to think of it, don't they have?
Look at them. You can see it in there. It's all matted down in the broth.
That's disgusting.
What do you think that tastes like? I bet it tastes like depression and like poor choices.
I'll tell you this much, man. Anything that has hair on it doesn't belong. Like obviously, like when you have a piece of meat, like say you get steak or something from the grocery store, they shave it before they, put it out to display.
Right.
But
right. Well, they skin it. They skin it.
They skin it. Yeah, exactly. Take the fur off and on. But like, I mean, anything like that they bring to you, like someone would bring to you, and it's still got like fur and skin on it. Like, I'm going, come on, dude. Like, this is, like you said, lazy. Like,
defang, declaw, and skin it, and then we'll talk. Then maybe I'll eat bat soup. I don't know. Right? I'm not like
hand it to me. Hand it to me on a kebab stick with no fur.
It better look like a squirrel when it comes out here. Like
I'll try the wings. I don't know. But I'm not eat it. What do you do with the teeth? Like, you're not going to eat the teeth, so part of this is like you got to.
It's going to waste. The Native Americans are going to be furious.
Exactly. Yeah. So now that we're
you know what? I do want to talk about something. We need to talk about something important, and we got to give some science to the people at home. All right, because they want to know, how does a virus spread, right, from an animal to a human? Right. And this is important because it's happened, and that's what is causing these issues, like from a bird to a person. That's how we got the bird flu. We got the swine flu, right? It went from a pig to a human. We've got and then we'll come to the other one here in a minute. But here's what happens, right? And I'm gonna give you the science because I recently learned it myself. When a virus spreads, right, it can happen in an animal, and you might be like 99.999% of the time it won't affect you whatsoever because the virus can't go from animal to human. Like, we don't share enough similar anatomy and systems in order for us to be able to catch these diseases from animals, right? But sometimes they do, and here's how that works. When, like, say the pigs, right? The pigs were very sick in Maryland, and people were petting these pigs, and you can't not pet a pig because they're adorable. They're very cute. I've been bitten by every single animal that I've ever come in contact with. So like, I was bit by a pig one time and then legitimately almost lost 2 of my fingers because
things will
well, we know this. I should have known because this happened like long after I saw the movie Snatch, so I should have known better. But I was like,
will go through bone like butter.
But right? I did. He almost did it. He went to the bone, right? Because I put my hand out with the food on it and I let him eat off of it. But pigs are stupid. And he just kept eating, and he got a hold of my ring finger and my middle finger, and he bit down, and it hurt like 8 bitches on a bitch boat.
Right.
The like I had to go to the hospital. I didn't go that day because I'm like, well, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's bone or if that's like soft tissue or what. So I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be a dick and like go to the emergency room. I'm like everybody, like not. I'm like the opposite of everybody else who's like, I'm gonna go to the emergency room for a stuffy nose. Like I'm the guy who I literally have to be bleeding out to where I can't stop it. Where I'm like, you know
Hmm.
what, maybe I should go to the emergency room. Um, but yeah, I went to the doctor and I had to fill out the online form before I went because I was requesting a doctor's appointment.
Right.
And it said, "What would you like to see the doctor for?" And I said, "I was bit by a pig, and it went like the wounds are starting to look kind of funky. I don't know if they're infected or whatever. I don't want them to get infected. I want to make sure I have like the antibiotics I need or whatever so that I don't lose my fingers." I'm not kidding. I was really bit by a pig. I had to write that in there because I knew if he read I was bit by a pig, he'd be like, "Is this guy fucking with me? Like who gets bit by a pig?" But I went and the doctor was like, "This is the first time I've ever seen somebody bit by a pig. Like I have and he had retired the next year, so I like to think that I had something to do with that." He's like, "Well, I've seen it all
So
now."
I've seen it all. Yeah. That's it. Calling it in.
But yeah, so what happens is it transfers and the virus, right? It when it goes into a human body, it
Hmm.
tries to create itself in a way that can assimilate into the human body. And when it does, it replicates itself within the human body. And once it's at that point, it can spread out and then it's immediately picked up by other human beings, right? Who don't have the genomes prepare or like on hand to fight the virus. So um for these pigs, you can imagine like a pig sneezes and there's just like a shit ton of kids running around with like undeveloped immune systems and they're all getting sneezed on. Some of them, these viruses are getting in and they're just nothing happens because the immune system fights it off or it doesn't stick and it can't replicate and all this complicated shit that goes on in the human body when a virus enters. Most of the time it's gotten rid of because the immune system is fantastic. It's a well-oiled machine. But when it's able to beat the the immune system, it creates these variants. So say like two of these pigs or three of these pigs have this virus. Each one has like a slightly different one, and when it goes into somebody else or into a human, it creates different variants. Now, these different variants, some succeed, some fail. Once they succeed and they replicate, it becomes a human virus. So then the human virus can easily spread from one human to another.
Is that like a
Um,
mutation? Is it mutated?
that's
Is that
what
what it,
happens. Is yeah,
that's what happens, right?
it absolutely mutates, and that's what happens with these when you hear about the flu virus mutating.
Hmm.
That's what it's talking about in these different strains because we can combat. That's why the flu is such a bastard, is
Right.
because like it constantly mutates every year, and scientists they're like, well, we can try to predict which one it's gonna do, but we're
Yeah.
not really sure, and like most of the time they're wrong. But
Right.
we get this flu vaccine based on what they project it to be, and so that's how we end up with these animal human viruses that are shared. Now this sort of thing happened with, they don't know, in Wuhan, with these bats.
Right.
The same sort of thing happened. Like this virus that was in the bats ended up in humans, and somewhere along the way it stuck, and somebody spread the human version of it to everybody else. And the thing about China is there's so many Chinese
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that that it immediately spreads. And like a lot of them take these, you know, you've seen them like pack into these the subways
Trains.
and the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
trains and all that crap. So I mean, like as soon as one person gets something, everybody gets it. It's like a
Yeah.
playground or like a
Well, it's just
daycare.
like I said, like in Taiwan, like it's like that's a smaller version of China, I guess you could say. But it's so like everywhere you go, it's so compact. Like literally, like everywhere you go, there's people like really near you, and it's like me, I don't like I have a bubble, man, and I'm like get away from me, like don't touch me, you know. But like anywhere you go, it's like that elevator or that bus where, and then like it's a funny, interesting you mentioned the train because when I was in Taiwan, I remember that, like we went somewhere and we had to get on an elevator, and it was like they stuffed like literally there was like 50 people trying to get on. Like you know how there's a limit to how many people are allowed on an elevator. Well, they were like pushing it to the limit. Like you're allowed 50
Push
people
it
on
to
this
the
elevator.
limit.
Exactly. And so like 50 people at once, and it's like all the people trying to get on at once, and so literally you're butt to nut with everybody. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. So we're gonna take the stairs. I'm
You know,
not getting on it.
Buzz Busby in the chat did a Soviet, or he did a Yakov Smirnov thing when I was talking about the pig. He says, "In Soviet Russia, ham bites you."
Nice.
um, and then also Mike in Manitoba. You already know the answer to that. I told you it was my fingers. He bit me on you. You just like us calling you uncalled. Like that is inappropriate. That's uncalled
Yeah.
for.
Inappropriate, Doug. Yeah.
So you were in there banging dudes on the elevator? That's what you're like accidentally, like when it comes
But
to a halt too quick, it comes to a halt real quick, and then like the
yeah,
guy in front of you is like, oops, my
yeah,
pants.
you're inside of them and you're not trying to be.
And that's what I do want to talk about that because I do want to talk about gay sex here for a minute because
Well, it's funny you should bring that up because I was going to mention AIDS and how we were talking about, that came from a monkey, and then like somebody
right,
said,
right.
did they bang a monkey, and is that a rumor? So let's talk about that.
Well, I am excited to talk about that because this is one of my favorite jokes comes from this because and you and I talked about this before. I don't like you were just saying, but the whole thing with people say, well, did he fuck the monkey? Or like it supposedly came from a monkey, right? And that's what you hear. Like, did a guy fuck a monkey? Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, well, the answer is I don't know because who's gonna fess up to fucking a monkey?
Yeah,
You know what I
no.
mean? Like, who's gonna be like, oh, not only did I get this like incurable disease that nobody knows what it is, or nobody has any kind of like remedy for my problems that I'm having, but also I fucked a monkey.
Yeah,
Like
no one's.
nobody's gonna fess up to that.
There's like one dude out there that's proud of. He's like, yeah, I fucked a monkey. It was good too.
And he's like the guy who didn't
That
get
was the
AIDS.
best piece of ass I ever had.
And that was the thing too. They mentioned it was not specifically about AIDS or HIV. They said that the primates are notorious for spreading diseases that are typically reserved for primates, right? To humans because we share so many similarities. Same thing with monkey, or I'm sorry, not monkeys. Oh, monkeys. Same thing. Same thing can be said about monkeys. Well, no shit. No, same thing can be said about pigs because we share a lot of the same characteristics as pigs, and also rats because like if you I don't know if you've read about like the cloning procedures where they're actually like cloning human ears on pigs
On
and rats and
shit.
stuff.
Yeah.
Because we share so much with them, and that's why we end up with like a lot of these same diseases. We get a lot of same problems from swine or from pigs and rats and all that shit. But monkeys are the same way because they're our closest ancestor from on the evolutionary tree. That we are more at risk for catching their shit than like any other animal, and that's why they suspect that the HIV virus or HIV human immunodeficiency virus came from the monkey. And the guy, this is back in like 1957, was like the first case of HIV, and the guy said that he was cutting up monkey meat, like he was a butcher and he was chopping up monkey meat, and he got AIDS, which is like it's like what you would say if you fucked a monkey and somebody's like, how did you get this monkey disease? Well, like
So
I
I
was cutting up monkey meat, and then like nobody like back then was funny, so they're like, you're cutting up monkey meat? You mean you were fucking a monkey? Is that like the term that you use for when you're fucking a monkey? You're cutting up monkey meat.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting though. You were talking about well, the sexual proclivities of animals. I watched something recently, and I'll go more into like my deviance as a person here. I watched something recently on like the weird mating habits of various animals, and one of them was there's a few that are really like there are animals that have like orgies apparently. Like there are animals out there that are just banging everything that like
Which ones?
like
like let's get there before there's a line.
okay, so like elephants apparently have like orgies. There's there's a group of snakes, I forget which one, that like after they hibernate, they have an orgy. It's like crazy. And then there obviously there are animals too that like
Do you
have
think like the snakes when they wake up from their hibernation, they're like, "Do you know how long it's been since I've gotten a piece of ass?" And they're like, "Yes, we've all been asleep for the same amount of time. I know exactly how long it's been since you've gotten
but
yourself
like
some
it kind of
snake
puts
ass."
things in perspective. It kind of put like yeah, you're right. It kind of puts things in perspective though because like okay, we have these like deviants out here too, like humans. There are human deviants, and we let's be honest, bestiality is going on.
Oh my goodness.
There's people out there. There's people out there that aren't just banging monkeys, they're banging like remember what was that girl we always talk about? The one with the video where she's like, I bang my dog and my dog loves
Oh, Whitney in Wisconsin, I
Whitney in
think.
Wisconsin, right?
Well, I
So
don't
there's
know if that's her
people.
name. Whitney something? I don't know. I don't know. Like, don't
So
quote me.
okay, so we've got degenerates, and like I'll be the one to say it. We've got degenerates out there that are banging animals, humans banging animals, So this is already something that's like I mean, science and nature is telling you this is wrong. You know what I mean? Because diseases are mutating because of it, right? But then you've got animals out there that are doing the same thing. Like there's weird shit, dude, that I saw like animals that like they're homosexual animals that like they're like the Arabs, man. Like they bang women for babies and then they bang men for pleasure.
Right, right.
Like there are really animals out there like this. And so it like blew my mind, right? Like, and it's coincides with what we're talking about because you've got all this sexual deviance in the animal kingdom,
Do you
and
think that when like a monkey rapes a human, do you think like they get caught or they hear like somebody finds out about it and they're like, "Oh, you fucked a dude?
like
Like you
another
fucked a
monkey.
human?" Yeah,
Like,
they come back and they're like, "Oh man, I totally banged this woman, like even a woman human." And they're like, "Oh, I totally fucked this human." And then they're like, "You did what?" Like
yeah, what's wrong
gross.
with you? Those things are gross.
With their clothes and stuff. Ugh. What is the matter with you?
Oh my gosh. But
Did you
yeah,
know?
like that's.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's the world we live in.
I don't think I want to
Sexual
live in a world where
It's everywhere. Like you think I'm bad, with all the problems that I have and the women
don't
issues and all.
don't you pawn this off on the monkeys. Don't be like, well, the monkeys do it or the snakes do it.
There, there are orgies, the animal kingdom, and there are orgies, and then humans are out here just banging whatever creature will let them, you know. Like what?
Oh my
Like what
goodness.
is wrong with you people? Like to me, like, and then let's not get started about furries.
Let's
We've got
do it.
this
Let's get
this
started about. I think I'm drunk enough and tired enough that I'm willing to go there. Let's go there with the
we
furries. Did we cover
have this.
everything we need to cover? Can we start attacking people at this point?
I think we did. I think we covered it all.
Um,
So what we have is this subculture of people that
I'm
like
gonna take the screen back off me. Here you go. I don't want whatever you're about to say to be like. I don't want people to remember my face to whatever you're saying.
we have this subculture of people that they put on costumes of the animal that they I guess identify as,
Mhm.
and then they bang each other as these animals. And to me, that's like borderline bestiality. That's to me that's saying
But what if
like
they're another animal? Like
what do
I'm
you
gonna
call it?
I'm
Like
gonna play the devil's advocate here. I'm not a
curious,
furry.
like bestiality curious,
Beast curious.
curious. Yeah, you get it.
So if they're a dog, and I mean, let's say somebody's furry or fursona is a dog, and then their buddy. Let's not get started on the LGBT ramifications of the furry community. Let's strictly just focus on the fact that it's a furry with another furry. So if this furry and he's a dog, and then the other fursona is a chicken. I don't know what type of a lion. We'll go with a lion or a leopard. So a dog
Okay.
and a leopard.
Right,
That's
right.
problematic. Like in the animal kingdom, it wouldn't happen. But for the sake of the furry lifestyle, all right, they do that. Is there anything really wrong with that, V? If two animals are getting it on, like, where's the issue in that?
Are you
Oh,
talking
please,
about are you
please
talking about like
discuss.
as these people or are you talking about actual animals like
No, I'm talking about a guy dressed as a. Let's say it's a guy. Let's make it extra normal. Let's make it like, let's try to stick with like the sensibilities of our narrow-minded conservative
Hmm.
values, and say that it's a man and a woman,
Hmm.
right? It's a man, and they're not related. Okay, let's remove
Hmm.
that from the equation as well. Uh,
It's not like his
and
cousin or
and
some
they're both
shit.
right, and they're both consenting
Consent.
adults,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
right? And they're at a convention, a
Hmm.
furvention, and one of them is dressed as a dog, and the female is dressed as a leopard,
Hmm.
and they take it to the little leopard's room, and they end up banging it out on the diaper changing station. And what's wrong with that?
Well,
Please
so
discuss.
this picture that you painted here makes it a little, I guess, a little less devious. And I don't know, like I'm creeped out by it. So I might be like a furry phobic, I guess you could say.
Furphobic.
A fur phobe because I'm creeped out by it. Like, man, there are people out like, have you ever come across somebody like let's do another hypothetical situation, because the one that you just painted was probably the most wholesome furry situation that you
I'm
could come
see.
across.
I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here for the
Even though
furry
they banged in the
community, right?
bathroom on the changing station, it's still pretty wholesome from my perspective, considering the places that I've had sex, and I've had sex in the bathroom a few times myself. So to me, that's still pretty wholesome. But now let's put you in a situation. Like, imagine you're at the golf whatever game with your kid, right? Your oldest or your youngest. And like this dude, this dude walks up to you and he's like dressed in this furry outfit and it's like stained, like his armpits are stained and like his crotch area is stained.
Come
Like,
on.
seriously. And like he's got like a beer in his hand and he's like just like disgustingly scruffy, right? And he stands next to you and he goes, "What's up, bro?" And like how do you respond to that? Like what is your initial reaction? Like let's be honest, we're all immediate to judge people based on their appearance. And so what is your like you're there with your kid, what is your initial response, like exact like this is happening to me right now, there's this weirdo in a suit, he's not the mascot of the game. There's a mascot on the field, it's just some guy with like jizz stains on his furry costume that's standing next to you, and that's like that's his life, like that's how he perceives himself. What is
I'm
your reaction?
all right. You've painted a different picture for me here. I thought we were talking about like the furry on furry violence, or the furry on furry interactions, right? Which is like not a big deal because like let's be honest, like white on white crime, black on black crime,
Yeah,
that sort of stuff. Like nobody cares because they're like, oh, it's white on white, oh, it's
yeah,
black on
yeah.
black, and then people lose interest and shit real quick. And I'm like furry on furry sex. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
let him do it.
Keep it in the bedroom, keep it away from me. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see you guys dry humping in the lobby of the Howard Johnson. Like that's
Right.
a problem. But the way you've painted it, I think anybody who approaches me with a beer in their hand covered in crusty jizz stains in a costume, like that's a problem. And it's not even like if it's me, I would just ignore them, or I'd probably be like, "Hey, what's up?" And I would like move away. I would just try to avoid the situation. I'm trying to be polite, but like as soon as they approach me when I'm with my kid, I automatically assume they don't want anything to do with me.
Right.
They're going for my kid, and at that point,
Yeah.
I would tell them to fuck directly off. I would be like, "Take it like as far away as you can before I
Right.
remove you from this court." Like
And
get
I
away
think
from
that's
me.
my argument here is like the associations with bestiality. And like we're talking about viruses and all the stuff that spreads, and all this stuff happened because people are out there being devious. Like, let's be honest, like eating bats and banging monkeys. Like, come on, man. Like, don't you innately know like that's not dude. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Like,
Did
come
you
on.
not listen at all in your high school sex ed class? Like, where in the sex ed class did they tell you that you're supposed to dress up like a fucking monkey and hook up with another person dressed up in a weird mascot
And so
costume?
that's why,
Like,
yeah,
who
and
said you're supposed to fuck the grimace? Like, get out of here.
exactly. And so that's where like my argument starts is like it's like the gateway drug to like just like total like bananas shit. Like they're going, oh, I just dress up like an animal and I bang this other chick dressed up like an animal. But then they see like the goat or whatever and they're going, oh, but it looks like the chick that I was just banging and it has a hole, that's probably warm.
You know what I used to always say is like any kind of devious sexual activity is so much worse when it's gay. Like, not that there's anything like if you're gay and you're doing it with your life partner or whatever, by all means, go nuts. I'm not going to judge you for that. But like as soon as you are like doing something devious and then gay, you're like you're really pushing the envelope with me because you're like if you're like especially if you're like necrophilia and it's
Mhm.
with a guy, like that's double trouble right there. You
Right.
know, you've got like incest. If it's gay, that's twice as bad. You know, yeah, and it's already a problem. I mean, like I'm talking about all these things that are like really already a problem. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're a guy dressed up as a blue wolf, and you're trying to fuck a yellow lion or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
a dude. Like you're trying to fuck a yellow lion's butthole. That's a problem. You know, like then it becomes an issue, and I'm like, come on, like you already had a handicap. Like let's not add to it here. Um,
Right.
but so that's my take on it. Like I don't know where these parents are that they're telling their kids like the birds and the bees is like, you know, when a man and a woman really love each other, it's like now they're like,
They
well,
dress up like animals.
when loves they're like
Yeah.
whatever
When a
represents like
man
when
loves a
anything loves another.
chupacabra, whatever animal,
Well, and
sometimes
it's
he
at a point where
dresses
it's like, or a man and another man and a midget and the Chuck E. Cheese guy in costume and a
on a
dead
tiny.
guy and a an oiled slip and slide. Like whatever you guys want to do, then that's like these are the birds and the bees speeches where like I kind of want to step in and be like, let me father your children for you
Yeah.
because you're messing this up. Like let me help you in some way because there's got to be some kind of normalcy to like propagate the species or to continue the species, right? Um,
Interestingly, to add to that, and this is like the one serious thing that I will say today. I saw a really interesting statistic today, and this may be sad if anybody's listening that doesn't have this, but apparently, children that have like fathers that are present are just like better emotionally and like better in life. Like statistically, like they don't like have problems as much as like people that do. Like, like it's like crazy, dude. Like all you
no,
need is
that's
a
you're
dad that's
right.
there, and like that's it. Like apparently like that's all it takes.
So
So
here's the thing with that. Excuse me. Um, the you know, I thought I had more time. No. So the thing with that is like of the last, I think we talked about this at one point.
mm,
Of the 30 major uh, mass shootings, like the one common thing between 29 of them, like I'm sorry, the 30 biggest, most casualty causing mass shootings, 29 of those, the one common piece was that they didn't have a father figure in their life. So I'm always
right,
like, if you have a child, you need to be involved in that child's life. Not saying that that child will go on to be a serial murderer or like a mass murderer, but why take a chance? You know, like if you're not there to kind of mold them as like, especially a boy, a young boy,
mhm.
because boys, when we grow up, we have like all this testosterone. We don't know what to do with it. We're like, I'm gonna go shoot somebody. You know, like if they don't have somebody to be like, hey, take that out and to the basketball court or do something like let's go play basketball, let's go hunting, let's go fishing, let's do something with all that uh puberty that's happening with you. We gotta do
Right, yeah,
something with it, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
because otherwise you're gonna end up fucking the raping somebody on the swim team, which is
yeah,
what you see happening again. You see all these kids like making horrible decisions, and then you're like, where was the dad? Oh, he wasn't there because, and it's not the dad's fault always.
yeah,
It's oftentimes it's just because we have a justice system that favors mothers and
yeah.
will
That's
give the
true.
mother the child,
Yeah,
and then the mother shuts the father out because she sits there and says all this horrible shit about the father, and then the child doesn't want anything to do with the father, and then the father
right.
can't get involved, and then the kid grows up to be a mass murderer. And that's just statistics, and it's a problem. And if you have a kid, if you're not there for your kid, and your kid grows up to be a serial murderer, I'm like I have little sympathy for you, because you should have found a way to be there. If not for you know, you got to work. You know, sometimes it's hard. I get it. Like 50% of divorces, or I'm sorry, 50% of marriages end in divorce. It's difficult,
Hmm.
but like end amicably for the child, because
Hmm.
that's the future generation, and then it's your responsibility as a father to make sure that that kid. And you know, we're turning this into an after school special or something.
I know, right?
Um,
But it's something to talk about. Like, I didn't want to get serious, but it is true. Like, that's something that affects, society and like as a whole. And like, obviously, like we always talk about this. Like, obviously, we're conservative. That's a given, I guess. If you're listening to the show and you're liberal, you're probably going, "Oh, these guys, they're fucking opinions, right? They're fucking, they're so right wing, right?" But the thing is like that's the whole reason behind like conservatism is that we like look as at wholesome values. Like we go, we have these values and like morals that we want to impart to like the future generations. And like those kind of things are important, with kids. And like, I don't have kids or anything, like God forbid. I probably had some somewhere. Well, some that don't exist anymore and some that probably might be in other countries or whatever, but who knows? But if the one day comes that I do decide to procreate or adopt or whatever, provided that I have the right genetic match, I think that my goal will be to impart to them like wholesome values. And like it's funny too, like I talked to my dad recently about this. I said my dad, he's kind of like self-deprecating a lot too, and he's always like, "Oh, sometimes I feel like a jerk for having you." That's like his line. He always
well,
says, "I feel like a jerk for having you because I shouldn't have, whatever." And like what were you saying? Go ahead.
no, I don't think to say that he's self-deprecating. Sorry, I've been drinking quite a bit and I'm very tired. So like it's playing this like double whammy on my head, and I'm having difficulties piecing together sentences. Um, I understand what when he says, you know, I feel like a jerk for having you. It's not so much of a dick thing to say as it is like I should have been there. I should have done
Yeah.
more. I should have been. If I had the foresight to know that I wouldn't have been able to be there, I wouldn't have put that on you. Because as a when you're a failure as a dad, and typically when a dad is a failure, quote unquote, they're
Hmm.
not really the failure. It's
Yeah.
like they were prevented the opportunity to be a
And a lot of
success.
times it's situational too. And
Right.
like I said, like that's like it's interesting because my dad has all these like regrets or whatever, and I'm always like, well, I'm an adult now too, so I have like a different view. Like I see the way my dad like lived his life differently now. I go, well, how would I have acted in those situations? And like I put myself in his shoe and I try to look at it from a different perspective, right? And various things and whatnot. But the one thing that I can always say without a doubt is that he imparted to me like wholesome values. And so I'm not like a mass murderer or anything. Like I've never done anything that's like aside from being, a sexual deviant myself, probably, with the exception of like, whatever hookers I've slept with and whatnot.
Yeah, but you
you
were
know,
probably a gentleman to those hookers. Like
no,
probably
I was
nicer to the hookers than you
absolutely,
should have been or were
absolutely.
required to.
They're great women. The ones in Amberg, when I was in Germany, man, they were like wonderful. I used to go to this hooker in Amberg, and she was amazing, dude. She was a Thai girl. Well, she was from Thailand, but she'd say Thai girl. She couldn't say Thai girl. And like, she was amazing, dude. She had big fake boobs and like exactly like tits on a stick, like exactly how I like them, right? And like, I used to go see her every weekend. It was like without a doubt, like I instead of going straight to the club and like going, oh, I'm gonna pick up some chick tonight. I gotta like, and then having all this testosterone, like, I couldn't enjoy myself. I'd go there first, right? And I'd get it all out of my system, and then I'd go to the club and like, party and drink or whatever all night. And it was like a great time because I wasn't so concerned with getting laid because I had already gotten laid. But I'd
So
go to this, I'd go to
so
this prostitute.
were you like how much did it cost like in American dollars? Let's talk USDs. How
Hmm.
much did it cost for like for you to just like I want to get into it. I want to get into a conversation. This is what I want to hear about, and this is what I want to change
All
the
right.
conversation to. How much did it cost to, for those of us who have never been to a hooker,
Hmm.
and especially over in the red light district over in Germany or whatever,
Hmm.
um, how much did it cost to bang a hooker, and what what went on from like the moment you walked in the door and like what were the rules and
Okay.
what were
Okay.
you able to do and not able to. I want to hear about that, and I think there's probably a couple who like we have our ideas of what it's like to bang a hooker
Right. Okay.
at
Well,
in the red light district, but go
I'll
ahead.
give you the I'll give you the grand story then. I have, like I have this different perception of hookers because I've been with a lot of them, and like not just in Germany, like all over the world. And then even when I came back to the States, I had this kind of penchant for hookers, and so I'd get on Blacklist and or Backpage or whatever, or Craigslist, and I'd find the ones that had like these in calls. They'd just come to your house or whatever. And but when I was in Germany, basically what we would do is it depended on where we were at. If we were in a bigger city like Berlin or like Nuremberg, it was a little more expensive, but those places they had the district, right? And like the actual red light district where you went down this little alley and you kind of took a couple turns, and then there's this like giant like apartment complex that had all these windows on the side, and not like little windows, like glass like windows basically. I guess all windows are glass, but like big a wall of windows, I guess you could say. And then there are women dressed in lingerie, and all of like hundreds of women, right? Like picture that, right? Hundreds of women, and they're all trying to draw you in, right? And like most of them are like gorgeous, like they have these like what do you call it, benefits over there in Germany. In fact, a lot of Europe that has where prostitution is legal, they have benefits. And so basically what it is like they give them all these health things, so that all of them are healthy, right? None of them have issues with diseases or whatever, because you can't even get into the gig unless you're healthy and whatever, right? And so you have all these chicks, right? And they're trying to, and most of them are like girls that are just trying to like put themselves through college or whatever, which I'm sure they're doing fine because the amount of the amount of people or foot traffic, I guess you would call it, that go in there. So my favorite one was in Amberg, where the Thai girl was at. And so I take the train to Amberg from where I was at in Vilseck, which was like 20 minutes, 20-minute train ride. And then there was no district in Amberg. It was just like you had to seek out the diamond in the rough massage parlors, right? And so I knew of this one. It was right when you got off the train. You go down this little alley and then you turn left and you kind of go around the corner. And how you always knew is they have this in the window, it's literally like a red shade or a red light, and it's not like the whole thing is like lit up red. It's like a little red thing, right? Like little up in the corner, like top corner. And sometimes it was like just a little heart, like that's all there was. Like there's no like red light blinking or anything. It's literally just a heart. So you had to know like the good places. Like it's kind of like you could go to this like the Outback Steakhouse of whorehouses, in Nuremberg, where everybody goes and it's packed all the time, and the good chicks are usually taken. So sometimes you don't get the, or you could like seek out the little dive, restaurant, so to speak, that is like the essentially like best one there is. And so me, I have yellow fever. I prefer the Asian persuasion. And so I found this one that somebody told me. I said, go to this one. It's in this place. You turn on this, blah, 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 blah. And then you'll see this little thing. And I found it. I was like, oh, this has got to be the place. And so I walk up to the door, and it says literally there's like a doorbell, and it says massage right above it, right? And so you ring the doorbell, and it's like kind of like a dead giveaway, right? And so you ring the doorbell, and then the owner, which it's this for this one, it was all Asian women, right? And so it's a mama san, right? This older, kind of still pretty hot actually, Asian, because they never age, right? Asian lady opens the door, and she's in lingerie, right? She's in like white underwear and like a slip or whatever. And then she brings you in, come in, come in, come in. And they're like so fucking nice, dude. They're like ridiculously nice, right? And so like so you go in, right? And then they bring you in, and like you can either go to like they have like a bar where you can sit and kind of drink, and like that's when they'll bring out the chicks, and like they'll kind of like try to entice you to pick one of them, right? So you get to like choose, right? Or you can go straight to it. They'll take you upstairs, and then the line of chicks comes out, like all of them at once, and like if you go at a good day, there's literally nobody there. It's just you and like all of these hookers. and like they'll line up for you, and then you just pick which one you want. Or two if you feel like you want to do two at the same time, and then you go into the room and then you pay them or whatever. Now typically, depending on where you go, in Nuremberg, right, where it's a little bit more busy and like they have an actual district, it's usually about 100 euros an hour, which is like 120 bucks American, right? In Nuremberg, or in Hamburg, I mean, where I used to go, it was 60 euros an hour, which is pretty much like $80, which isn't that bad. If you think about it, that's not that bad
Now,
for an
are
hour.
the women not as good in Nuremberg? Like, where was there like enough of a distinction between the cost, like where you could be like, nah, man, spring for the extra 60,
Well, here's
and
the thing. Here's the thing is like, in the industry there, if you're unattractive, you're not going to make money, right? So you're not going to be really working as much, and so it doesn't like make sense for an unattractive woman to go into that business because you're not going to get picked out of the lineup, right? So rarely, and this is maybe hard to believe, but rarely is there an unattractive woman at these like I don't remember ever like there being a girl that I wasn't like, okay, well, like I'd go with friends and they'd be like, I pick her before you got to pick, and then you go, oh, okay, and then you pick another one. They're still just as fine. I remember the first prostitute that I slept with when I was in Germany, was literally like a to me she looked like a Playboy model. Like I was like, man, this girl is like gorgeous. She's like big fake boobs and like blonde hair, and she's like from Czechoslovakia. Like, that's where all the models come from, is that area,
well,
you know.
yeah,
So
because sex trafficking, right?
yeah, exactly, sex trafficking. And like there are some places I'll admit to you that I went to around Germany and Czechoslovakia.
Did you ever have Liam Neeson storm in and be like, I know who you are.
Where's my daughter? Yeah.
Give me my
No,
daughter back.
but I will admit there are some places that I went to and I was like, these women look like they're trafficked in. Like,
Did you? Now, here's the question. Did you still fuck one?
well, yeah, of course. Obviously. Come on, dude.
Well, I'm not gonna pass on the opportunity to fuck a trafficked woman. Come on.
Of course. There was, man, the like, it's funny when people go, well, how many women have you slept with? And I go, I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40. And I go, but do you mean like also hookers? I go, the number is well into the hundreds. I don't know. Here's the funny thing. When I left Germany, I got stationed at Fort Leonard Wood. And I had to go through this in-processing thing where they ask you all these questions, and they go, oh, you just got back from Afghanistan, and do you have alcohol problems, and this, and they ask you all this stuff, right? And so the counselor's asking me all these questions. How much did you spend on alcohol in the past year? And I go, I don't know. I was in Germany. Everybody drank. Like, that's all everybody did is drink, you know. And there was even a bar where I had my friend, this girl actually I never slept with, surprisingly, she was the owner of the bar, and she was like my best friend. So she just gave me free drinks all the time. Like, I never had to pay. So I was literally drinking there every day. So I go, well, I didn't spend a lot of money, but I drank a lot. I drank a lot. Like I was literally an alcoholic when I was in Germany. But when I got back, it was over, right? I just stopped drinking. But then he goes, well, how much did you spend on like porn and like sex in the past year? And I go, well, here's the thing. And then I thought about it and I go, well, let's see, $60, at least $60 every weekend for a year. How much money is that?
Do you have like an abacus that you can pull out? So,
and that's not counting like porn subscriptions.
Oh yeah, because you were like the one guy on the internet who still subscribes to porn.
Exactly. And so I go, I don't know, $60 every weekend, and then whatever, $40. So $100. We'll say 60 times 4. We'll say 4 weeks. What is that?
240.
240, and then plus the extra 40, so 280 a month on sex stuff, right? Porn or prostitutes.
That's like your cost of living allowance, right?
Yeah, ridiculous.
So I do have a question for you. I'm gonna interject here.
Sure.
Well, first Busby says, do they have a 15-minute special? And I think, can you answer that? Is there like so from one location? Because I know like probably certain whores have that. I put out that this is like a Ask V your question about hookers, Q&A about whores. Like what is the rule on that?
Well, it's on where you're at again. Like if you're in Nuremberg or like where it's big, like they have a district like Nuremberg or like Berlin, then it's like it's a flat rate, €100 an hour. It doesn't matter how long you like. If you bust within 15 minutes, you just paid $100 for 15 minutes because they're going, okay, you're done, go. And like, because you're not going to be doing it again for a little bit, and they've got other customers waiting, so they send you on your way. But the places that you go, like the little nestled ones, you can go in there and be like, hey, I got €30. How about a beach, right? And they'll go, okay, yeah. And literally, that'll work for them. They'll do that. But those are the ones that like you have to like know about. And like, man, after living in Germany, I knew about all of them, dude. Like I knew every single spot. Like if I was in a city that I like didn't know, like I'd never been there before, I already knew where the good whorehouses were at. Like I already knew, like somebody told me. I remember, in fact, I remember the first time, that one I was telling you about in Amberg, the first time I went to that one, I had this crudely drawn map on a Post-it note that somebody they were like,
when you get there, I need you to go to the post office box. It's going to have the bat symbol drawn on it. You're going to take a right there to go about a quarter mile down the, well, over there it's what, like I need you to go about a kilometer, about half a kilometer down this street. Yeah. And then I'm going to need you to find, there's going to be a guy in a yellow parka, and you're going to get with him, and he's going to give you the rest of the directions from there, because it changes weekly. So...
Well, I was lucky too, because when I got to Germany, I made one of my good friends there was this guy, JD Uselak, John Dominic, who was the retention guy. And he was just like me. He used to always say, like, you're funny, man. Like, you're just like me. And, like, he was kind of the one that, like, what do you say? He like, took me under his wing because I'd never been to Germany. And he was like, you like whores? And I was like, do I? And then he was the one that gave me that crudely drawn map that was like and the thing was he had actually married a German girl, so he was married, so he couldn't do all that no more. So but he knew all the places from before because he had already been in Germany for like years. And he was like, so here, I'm gonna like impart all my knowledge to you,
so he could live vicariously through you.
Yeah, and he did. He literally did. Every time I'd come back and tell him a story, and he'd be like, oh, that's awesome, dude.
So you said that you could go in and you could sort of you could haggle these whores, right? And in some cases, like you could tell them, "Hey, I got $30. Can I get a blowy?"
Yeah.
Or like, "Hey, I got 20. Can I get a HJ, a handy J?"
Yeah.
But like, what were you allowed to do? What were the rules, like your left and right limits? Like if you went in and you paid the €120, and or what would you say? Well, 100. What would you say? Whatever. You paid the big ones, right? The 120, the more expensive ones. If you went in there and you threw 120 down and you said, "Hey, I want my hour," what were you allowed to do in that hour? And what were your limitations? Like what's, and then also tell us a personal story about like the weirdest thing that you ever did with a hooker that you got away with.
Well, I have to admit I'm not like a sexual pioneer or anything. I just like get in there and like enjoy myself. It's nothing like put your finger in my ass or anything like that.
Did you ever go down on a hooker? Did you ever pay to go down on a hooker?
Yeah,
okay,
no,
all right.
I wouldn't.
I'll
do
forgive
that.
you there.
No.
I was gonna say, like, there are probably some guys who are like, oh, I want to fucking eat a hooker out, like. And that like another dude just busted in there a couple minutes ago.
Yeah,
like that's
definitely wear a condom. Like even though they're all clean, like definitely wear a condom. They usually provide one. Like definitely do that. Like if you're in Germany and you want to bang hookers, like go have fun, but definitely wear a condom regardless. You never know. But it's like as far as I know, I don't have any personal stories like that. I had a buddy that we used to make fun of because he like fell in love with the hooker. Like he thought he was gonna marry her. Like every time we'd go out, he'd be like, "Are you guys going to Hamburg?" And we'd be like, "Yeah." And he'd be like, "All right." And then he'd go, and instead of going out to drink with us like after the whores, he'd stay at the whorehouse and like literally spend his entire check, like literally like just spending time with, like not banging her. Probably banging her at least once, but like just hanging out with her. And so he was spending all this money, and it was so funny, like cliche, like stereotype, dude. Like dude would be like, "Oh, she's gonna stop doing this, and like when I get back from Afghanistan, she's gonna be done, and we're gonna get married. And I'm gonna take her back to the States with me." And we would make fun of him. We'd be like, "You're fucking stupid, dude. Like Like you're giving this girl all your money and none of that stuff is gonna happen. And he'd be like, no, dude, she loves me. And I'd be like, okay, sure, dude.
Whatever, Sherman. I
Uh,
assume his name was Sherman.
yeah, yeah, Sherman. But
So,
he like I guess in terms of weirdness, he used to say like some weird things. He said that like he would just sometimes just pay her to like go in there and like cuddle with him and shit. And we'd all
what?
be gay. Like as soon as he said he go, well, I just go in there to pay her and cuddle. And we'd be like, what, dude? Like, what is wrong with you? Like,
Well,
what?
so what can you get away with? Like, I'm talking like, can you go in and be like, hey, I want to go ass to mouth, and then I also want you to, I don't know, and then also as soon as I'm done, like I want you to sit on my face and just like suck on your thumb and tickle my big toe. Like if you want, if you said that to them, could
See
you
what
get
you're
away
saying.
with that?
Like, what are the things that you're allowed to do it with a
Right.
whore? Basically.
Like I want
Uh,
to know like how much if I pay 120, can I degrade a whore?
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, definitely. The like it's pretty much like anything goes as long as it's not like violence involved.
Right,
Like
right.
if it's like as weird as it is, like you can do anything that's like on a menu. I think some places even have like menus where it's like literally like a menu, like here's everything that you're allowed to do. Um and I'm like standard. I just do the standard stuff.
Hey,
I'm
let
like,
me
I
just
just
get
want
the
to bang.
special. Let me just get the
Just
special today.
I just want to bang. Yeah, and so like you go in and then it's like whatever you want to do. Like you pay them and like it's basically that hour. So whatever you want to do, whether it's cuddle like, old gay boy or you want them to take a dump on you. I'm sure there are whores out there that specialize in that, but I think generally the ones in like the red light district like in Nuremberg or in like Berlin, like those ones like they're more used to like guys coming and like going coming and going guys showing up and then like just going to bars or showing up after bars and like which has to be like a good money maker because I imagine like a bunch of drunk dudes going in there and like they're like, oh, we're gonna fuck, and then they're so drunk that they can't get it up, so the chicks are just like making this money and not even having to bang half the time.
Nice.
But I think to answer your question, I think as long as it doesn't involve like anything violent, I think generally anything goes. Like I've never had a girl, like I've never been with, I say girl, I've never been with a hooer. I've
let's
never,
not let's not elevate them to a
yeah,
place of like humanity. Let's keep them down.
I've never been to a whore that didn't deny me anything. So like, and I like again, like I'm not like this like pioneer. I'm not like, yeah, yeah, dude. I don't know. I can't even think of any. As much as porn as I watch, I can't even think of it. And I go, and then they go, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. I'll
So
do that. How
here's
much?
here's another one for you.
All right.
So I'm like I said, I'm not a virologist. I'm not a chemist or biologist or anything. I'm not like as well versed in that sort of stuff as like obviously people who went to school for it. By the way, this whole time that you've been talking, I've been playing ludicrous instrumentals in the background. So you're gonna sound really cool, but we're also gonna get a copyright strike. Many of them probably.
Wow.
Um, but it's funny to me. The Mike, I guess I'm a little curious. When they get tested, right? And it says that they don't have AIDS or they don't have this particular disease. There are obviously some incubation periods with some of these diseases. It's not like they get tested every day, right? So what good really is a STD test or an AIDS test or HIV test when it could be 6 months they're sitting on an HIV or sitting with HIV before it's even noticeable in the bloodstream? What good is that to you, the guy who's going bareback into a hooer who like has AIDS and hasn't been tested in 4 months and has been like crawling with this monkey disease, right? this
Yeah.
this butcher monkey disease. Like what good, like where's the logic in that, I guess is my question. How often are they tested, and can you really trust somebody coming out and saying, yeah, like I'm not challenging the integrity of the whorehouse.
No, no,
I'm just
no.
saying,
I get what you're saying.
all
You
right.
know, like I said before, like I'm like if you're gonna go to the whorehouse, like wear a rubber, like use protection, like no matter what. But here's the thing, and this is something that like really think about. Like I've slept like with all these hookers, like seriously, like a lot, and like I've always used a condom. But I've slept with a lot of like other women that aren't hookers without condoms. And what's the difference? Like let's be honest, what's the difference? You know?
Statistics is the difference. Like the sheer amount of dick that they take that's the difference, V.
How do you know? How do you know though?
I guarantee Desert Trash, as much as you say about her, like as much as we laugh about that, about her, I guarantee she's not taking dick on the same level as some of these whores in the red light district. I would be willing to bet my entire pension on the fact that Desert Trash doesn't take more dick than like any of the girls in the red light district.
Yeah.
So that would be the difference, I would say,
I
between.
guess that's a fair argument. I guess I can't argue that. But I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I guess, I guess that what changes is you're using a condom, I guess. And that's like the only thing like I think about is like, well, I didn't use a condom with all these chicks that I've been with, outside of prostitutes and whatever, but I did use a condom with prostitutes. And I don't have any, I've never gotten anything. I don't have anything at all. Like I've never had an STD in my entire life, ever. Like nothing. And like I don't think I don't know. I guess I can't really yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. It's a tough one. All I can say is maybe I've been lucky.
Yeah,
Maybe
I would say that,
yeah.
your little whore guardian angel was looking out for you the whole time.
Do you remember Sergeant Smith? Remember Staff Sergeant Smith?
Of course I remember.
He used to have this thing he'd tell me at his safety briefing on the weekend. He'd do the whole like, oh, don't get in trouble with the law and don't drink and drive. And then he'd bring me in close. He'd go, come here, V. And then he'd bring me in close and he'd go, look. He's like, I know I've slept with probably like upwards of like 500 women. And I'd be like, what? Why are you telling me this? Like, why are you telling me this? And he goes, if you're going to sleep with a girl, wrap it up, dude. He's like, at some point, you're going to catch something. If you don't wrap it up, you're going to catch something. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's, whatever. He goes, that was always like his safety brief.
And you want to tell the story about the BK?
Well, that's an interesting one. The Burger King. It was the
I like that story. It's one of my
first time I ever like.
And then we'll wrap up the episode with this.
Okay, all right. This
the
the first time I ever did anal for a chick was this chick that I met at Burger King when I was at Fort Riley, where Tom and I were stationed together. And I was like flirting with her. I'd go through the drive-thru and get my cheesy tots, and I'd flirt with her every single time I drove through. And finally, like we did hooked up. Like I took her to the movies, and then I came home back to the bees. My roommate was out, and so I got to like to make the beast with two backs or whatever. But then she wanted me to, do the old butt stuff. And so I like put it in and it was like not a big deal. I just like banged her right in the butt. And so I was all proud of it. Like the next day I went and told my boss and I was like, check this out, dude. This chick, she let me do anal and I put it in and it went right in. And he was like, no. He's like, it's not supposed to go right in. He was so mad at me because it was like him after all that fact of him saying like, look, I've been with a lot of women. You gotta wrap it up. And after all that, like I went and I banged some chick in the butt who coincidentally had a loose asshole. So he was pretty upset about that. He was like, no. You were there, right? You were there.
I don't remember. I remember this. I've heard the story so many times and it makes me laugh every time. And but I might as well have been because I feel like I was around when like it happened. Like I wasn't like at the same place as you when it happened. Obviously, I wasn't like in the corner watching when you did it. But like that was when we were hanging out like every day. So you probably came over later that day and you were like, "Hey man, do the fucking chick in the butt." And it went, and I was like, oh, it's pretty tight, huh? Nope.
No.
Went right in. Nope.
What?
No sweat. No, easy breezy.
Man.
Yeah, that was I like that story. That's one of my favorite stories
It's
to
not a
think
proud
about.
day for me. Not a proud day. It is pretty good though.
Mike did want to know if you ever got fooled like James was.
Oh, you mean the Guam?
Yeah, via
Well,
Guam.
Guam? No, I've never been fooled. I actually am pretty a sober guy generally. Well, not in Germany at least, but I think if I saw a dick, I'd be so
You'd
off.
know
I'd
it.
be
Yeah, like
so,
it's not like no matter how drunk you are, like when you see a dick, you're gonna be like, "Whoa, hold up!" Like something
no,
is not right here.
never had
Did you
that.
ever see? Did you ever see when you were banging hookers in Germany? Did you ever see a vagina that was just such a train? This is the last question, I swear. Did you ever see a vagina that was just such a train wreck that you were like you really like hesitated? You were like, maybe not. Maybe I'm not that horny right now. Like, did you ever
Uh,
see one that you were like that you can recall that you're like, man, that was just
okay,
not a
yeah,
good looking vagina?
I've seen some like that like I saw it and I was like, but after like a couple seconds I was like, fuck it.
Were
Because
there
you're right
any? But were there any that you were kind of like really like it like looking back, you're like, I should not have done that. Bad.
Yeah,
That was a
yeah,
bad
definitely. The
vagina.
last day, in fact, the last day I left Germany, that guy JD Uzlak I was telling you about, he was like my
The
he was
cuddler.
he was my homie. He was the retention guy, and he was taking me to the airport for me to leave Germany. Like I had gotten, leave and I'm taking off, right? And I was like, man, I'm gonna miss Hooters. I was like, well, there were like I used to say there were two things that I loved about Germany. I hated Germany other than the fact, but there was this place called Black and White Pizza that like they had this amazing chicken Alfredo pasta, and I was like, man, I used to get it every day, and that place was so good that you had to order like 3 hours in advance if you wanted to get it delivered by a specific time. And I used to say there are two things I'm gonna miss about Germany: that chicken Alfredo from Black and White Pizza and Hooters. And like, so we're leaving, and he goes, he's like, we're heading. We were going to Frankfurt to like fly out. Now Frankfurt isn't famous for having a red light district, and I was like, oh man, I really want to fuck a whore before we leave though. And he was like, we'll find some in Frankfurt.
Don't you
And I was
worry. I'll
like,
get
all
you
right.
a hooer.
So like we drove around for a while and finally found this one place, and it was like some girl's apartment. It was like, and we go in and it's like just two girls. Like it wasn't like a whore house. It was just like some chick's house,
So it
and
was a whore's house, right?
it was the whore's house. Exactly, yeah. And they weren't very like no, they weren't like attractive or whatever. But we were like on a time crunch. Like my plane was leaving, and I was like like. It's like, fuck it. And actually, there one last story. You said any of that I regret. When I got back from the army, I was in California and I was doing a lot of the Backpage.com and like finding the what do you call it, the escorts
Yeah.
online or whatever, which was great. Like for a while, that one is actually probably a lot more risky to be honest too, because you
Oh
never
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I
Could
bet.
just be could show up and it's just like two black dudes ready to rob you. But I never had that. I guess I always got lucky. But basically how it goes is, well, it used to be. I don't know. Backpage I don't think exists anymore. But it
Like
used
a
to be.
lot of people want to be like really, they want to be like, why is it got to be a black dude? Because black dudes are tough. They're physically strong. Like that's why.
Statistically, it's usually a black dude.
It wasn't a racist thing. We were saying like
Yeah.
black guys are typically tougher than we are. Like we are weak men.
Anyways, pretty much. So you go on Backpage, right, and you scroll through all these chicks' pictures, and then they have their like number, and it's like donation, whatever fee, right? And that's how you get the whores from Backpage. You just find some chick on, and they still like you can still go on the internet and go find an escort near me, and it'll be like $60, and most of the ones in my area are expensive, so I never do it. I don't do it around here. They're like $200 an hour. I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. I'm not paying you that much, and they're not that good looking anyways. It's like whatever. I'm not paying you that much. So this one I see, she's like this like dark skinned like Hispanic girl, and I'm like, oh my god, this girl is gorgeous. Like scrolling through her pictures, like man, this girl's amazing, right? And it was like $60, right? $60 an hour, and I was like, shit, dude, like that's fucking perfect. So she's like staying in this hotel, right? I send her the text. You got to send the text, and then they go, okay, show up at this time or whatever, because it's like got to be in between her other whatever Johns. And so, so of course this is a risk now. This is like a risk now. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, like I'll show up and it's like really like an airport hotel, like pretty shitty. Like chances are this chick is like on like some layover and she's like, I'll just make some extra cash by selling my ass. Right. And so I go up to the room, right, knock on the door, and it's a chick that doesn't even look like not like it's this chubby girl. And it's like, what? Like you're not the girl in the picture at all. And I was like, fuck. And like I had already like drove out there and it was like, oh, either I could like just go home and look more and try to drive around looking for another one, or I could just deal with this one and
You
just
say
like do
go
it.
home like you don't have a cell phone, right? Like you can do it on your phone, right?
Well, I actually I'm guilty of not having a cell phone for a really, I don't know if you remember.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I didn't actually get online or have a cell phone until like 2000 and like 15, 2016. Like really, like I had this buddy, man, that like one day he was like, "Look, dude, we need to get you a cell phone." And this was like in 2015, I think. And he was like, he brought me a phone, like one of his old phones, and then he took me to Verizon and was like, "Here, like this is your prepaid phone and this." And I was like, "What, dude?" He was just sick of not being able to get a hold of me. But I was so against it for a long time because I hated
I
people
remember
being
because
able
I
to.
lost touch with you for
Yeah,
like a decade.
it was a long time. Yeah, so but then I go to this chick and she's this whore, and then she wasn't anything that looked like the picture. She was like chubby and not attractive. But I was there and I was like, fuck it, dude. Like, and like to this day, she's probably the chubbiest girl that I've ever banged, to be honest.
And you paid for it?
I paid for it.
Shame
Yeah,
on you. Shame on both your
yeah,
houses. The
yeah.
you know what? Fuck it. I was like that was the last question, but we're gonna talk about this shit anyways. We might as well just keep talking
All right.
until Mike's like, I need to go to bed. Bye guys,
Yeah,
and then we'll call it a day.
yeah.
Um, so what else? What was your most like memorable horror experience that I'm like people at home can't see this because I've been leaving it on V's. I've been leaning back in my chair, like listening like this, like so. What's your horror experience now? Like what's your most memorable horror experience that you ever had? Like the one that was most that stands out that you're like, man, that was a good time. I'm glad I did it that day. Like what's that one that really sticks out? Because you've always got that one. Like no matter how many times you've done something, you're like,
Right.
man, this one particular time. Was it your first time? Was it one that was in the middle of all the horror? The gash smashing, right?
Yeah.
Was it one? Was the? It wasn't the last one, right? Well, I don't know
No,
when your last horror was.
absolutely.
But like, was it somebody from? It certainly probably wasn't from Backpage or Craigslist or whatever. Uh, Tell us about your most memorable horror experience. That's what I
Um,
want to hear about.
well, I have, okay, here's an interesting one. Um, the first thing I'll say is if you're in Vegas, do not pay for whores in Vegas. Like, don't like go on any site. Don't like fucking like anything that somebody hands you that's like whatever you think it is. Like, do not do that because it's all a ripoff. This is I'll tell you my bad one and then I'll tell you my good one. So I'm in Vegas, right? And like I'm up a lot. Like I think I was up like 3 grand, and like just like hanging out. Like it was me and this other dude that I was in an infantry unit with when I was in Germany, Spence, right? Which um, I was doing a lot of cocaine at the time. I had a cocaine problem, but I also was gambling a lot, and so it was like kind of
It evened
whatever.
out. It evened out
Yeah.
for you.
So we were, all hopped up on yay or whatever, yay, whatever you call it, booger sugar, booger sugar. And so like, he was like, I'm gonna go out and gamble and whatever. And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? And he was like, you're gonna call a whore, aren't you? And I was like, I'm gonna call a whore. And so I looked up I had a phone at the time, so I'm like looking up internet stuff, and I find this one that's like all Asians, right? And so I call it up and I'm like, yeah, send a girl over or whatever, and it's Vegas, so I assume they're all attractive, right? So this girl shows up at my door and she's not Asian at all, like she's like a white girl, and she's still attractive. And I go, oh, I go, what is this? I go, I asked for an Asian girl, and she goes, oh, can I come in? And I go, no, I asked for an Asian girl. No, like the trick is that must be the trick, and I'm wise to all that shit, right? They go and I go, no, I'm not gonna let you in because that's what she wanted was to come in and me go, oh fuck it, I'll just fuck you, right? And so I go, no, 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 I don't want you to come in. I go, call your manager and tell him I asked for an Asian chick. And so she leaves. She's all like insulted, I guess, or whatever. And so nothing happens and nobody shows up, right, for like hours. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like it's 2 hours later. And finally I go, you know what, I'll just call another place. So I call this other place, right? And this chick shows up and like, mind you, like we've been doing coke and like my buddy smoked a lot of weed and like he had this like vape pen of weed, right? And
Hmm.
so while I was waiting, I was like puffing on it like nervously. And so the whole room was just like this fog of like weed smoke. Like literally, like imagine a hotel room where there's no windows open and somebody's just smoking weed the whole time. Like it's literally a fog of like weed smoke. And so the girl shows up and she's Asian and she looks good. And I'm like, okay, come in. And then immediately she's like, oh my God, it's so smoky. It's so smoky in here. And she was like mad. She's like angry about it. She's like, my boyfriend is gonna be so mad. And I was like, your boyfriend? I was like, if I was like, first of all, that's probably not the thing that he's gonna be upset about. Considering what you're doing right now, right? So she goes, whatever, lay on the bed, right? Take off your clothes. So I lay on the bed and like she starts, giving me a hand job. And I'm like, all right, fine, that's good, whatever. Like, let's do this, right? I'm like getting annoyed kind of. And she goes, no, 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 like I don't do that. We don't have sex in this. I just give you a hand job. And I was like, no, like that's not how it works. I go, I'm paying you this and we're having sex. I'm like, like what? That's not what the ad said. That's not what this is, whatever. And so she goes, no, I'm leaving, right? And then she grabs the money that I had left on the counter, like $300, right? And she fucking
What?
bounces, right? And I'm like stoned, like this. I didn't notice this, right? At first, I'm like so stoned and like coked out that I'm like what, dude? Like fuck that bitch, right? Like fuck her, whatever. Like, and then I realized and like 30 minutes later, like holy shit, she just fucking robbed me. She just took my fucking money, right? And so I'm all fucking pissed off, and I'm like, fuck, and I didn't even get laid. So well, I'll just call another one.
Oh no.
So I call another one, like another service, right? And this chick shows up, and she's not really attractive. She's like a little more thick for my taste, but she wasn't bad. She wasn't like terrible, right? Not the worst I've ever been with. And at this point, I was like, fuck it, this girl's gonna have sex. And I made sure like to clearly go, like, look, are we doing this? Like, you're not. I'm gonna, like just get a hand. And she was like an English speaking Asian girl, so she was like, yes. She's like, this is happening. Like, you're good. Like, just make sure you give me this much amount or whatever. And so I give her that much amount, and then she goes, she goes, let's go down to the ATM real quick. I need to get whatever. And I go, all right, whatever, fine. Like, right. So we go to the ATM and she goes, can you get out another $100 for me? And I was like, fuck. And I knew like this is it. Like this is why you don't get hookers in Vegas. This is what I heard. And I go, fuck it. I go, this is the last one, right? And I go, here you go. Here's another fucking 100, right? And I'm up anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a deal to me. And like finally we go up and like I'll be honest with you, like all out of all the $600 that I lost that night from like trying to get a hooker, that girl, like my legs were shaking afterwards. Like it was like amazing.
Oh
Like I was
wow.
like she like literally blew my mind. Like I couldn't stand up afterwards. like
So it
like
was
my
like the worst. You had like the worst one and the best one in the set. Well, not
oh,
the best one, but like a great one, right?
yeah, like it ended up being pretty great. And then she just like high fived me and was out. And like that was it. Like that was the Vegas experience. But I'm saying this like don't waste your money in Vegas. Like there's places a little bit outside of Vegas that are like Pahrump, which is a little bit better. But the best one was probably the Thai girl in Amberg that I always talk about. Like she was like amazing. Like to me, that girl she was like the epitome of exactly what I want in terms of like physical appearance of a woman. Like she had big fake boobs, like I love fake boobs, and like she was petite, and she had this perfect like hourglass body, and like perfect skin, and then she was like a little bit tanned. She's Thai, she's from Thailand, so everything was symmetrical, right? And then she had this like very submissive attitude, and I'm very fond of that as well. But I went to her every weekend. Like when I was living in Germany, if I wasn't going out of the city, like Nuremberg was literally like 20 minutes away. That's where I was going to the same one every weekend. So technically, I was like banging the same chick all this time. I mean, every now and then, if I was in a different town, I'd find a whorehouse. But like, if I wasn't going out for the weekend, I went to Amberg to like my Thai girl. That's what I called her, my Thai
But
girl.
you were being, you were staying true to this whore. is what you're saying.
I wouldn't say I was staying
For
true
the
to
most
her.
part, for the
Was
most
like
part,
my
you were
she was my
you were
favorite one. She was the favorite. Like all the other ones in that whorehouse were pretty good. Like they were all attractive, and I had been with a couple of the other ones too. But man, like I'd go in and like they'd line up and they go, "Which one do you want?" And like I always knew right away. Like, oh, this. Like I'd for a second go, which one? And then I go, "Oh yeah, her." Every time, every single
so.
time.
But let me ask you this. Well, first of all, John Taylor looks just as furious as like the rest of us. He says $300 for a handy. Like that was his
Even
question, which I think
yeah.
we all can agree that. And you didn't even get like a full handy.
No, I didn't finish. She got angry and left.
You got a
She was
half in
like,
hand.
yeah, it was not even complete. I got robbed, is basically what happened. I got robbed in that situation.
You got a half in hand for 300.
Yeah.
Um.
It was
So.
lazy too. No octopus, none of that good stuff. It was
Oh,
like,
so it was just a real just.
yeah,
Uh,
melancholy.
did
Yeah.
she smile or make eye contact? What was? Where
No,
were her
no,
eyes?
was angry. She was like irritated. Like you've never gotten a hand job from a girl that was like irritated at doing it. And she was like lazily, she was like mad, put off by it. Like, I can't believe I'm jerking this dude's dick off. Like so angry about it.
Was she like loudly sighing? Was she going?
Yeah, like she couldn't believe it. She was one of those, like it was so funny to me that she was like comes in and the room is just this cloud of weed and she goes, "My boyfriend is gonna be so mad at me." Like that's what you're worried about.
That was my question. I wanted to ask you this earlier. Let me sit up because I'm like lying back in my chair listening to your, story time with Papa V. Um, so that's my curiosity, I guess, like with that sort of situation, like what kind of a, I don't like to use the term loosely, but the cuckolds, right?
Mm.
And you hear it thrown around a lot,
Right,
this
right.
cuck.
Yeah,
And
bitch.
I don't care because at a certain point you're like, okay, everybody who's like kind of a beta male, like cuck, is that what we're doing? Um,
Yeah.
but you've got these cuckolds, right? Like the guys who let their girlfriends go out and fuck other guys, or even jerking off another guy. Because I would, under no circumstances, would I like be at all okay with my wife. Not that she would do it, but
Yeah.
not under no circumstances would I be like, go do this for a couple $100 and just pay the fucking cable bill or what. Like
Yeah.
under no circumstances would that be acceptable to me. Then you've got like these guys who are like, yeah, go out, jerk off a couple guys, and then for a couple $100 and we'll be all right. So you can
Mm.
fund my SoundCloud or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what like these dudes are doing. And like, what kind of a cuckold do you have to be in order to allow your girlfriend to go into um the prostitution
Yeah.
industry?
Yeah, it's a
Like
good
what
question.
could you see yourself ever doing that with a woman that you truly loved or cared about or
Well,
saw yourself later on down the road
well,
marrying? Could
that's
you
an interesting
imagine that?
question. That's a really interesting question, because it brings up another topic. And here's the thing, like, man, I love porn stars. I do love adult film, and like when I would like, there are a few porn stars that I really, really like. Like Rachel Starr is probably my favorite of all time. And I always think like, if I ever was in a situation where I met a porn star and she like was like, "Yeah, man, let's do this." I like to me that's like I can die a happy man. Like I can die a happy man if I bang a porn star, right? Like to me that's like I've made it. Like forget all my other like
You'd be like,
lifetime
you know what,
goals.
Taka Chan, I wasn't fat enough for Jenna Jameson, or what, I don't
Yeah,
know, like porn stars back when I was a kid or whatever. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to dig Chasey Lane. I wasn't fat enough for Chasey Lane.
Exactly. Exactly. But my point is this is that like in that situation like what would I do? Like I think to me like and this is probably like this is where society has fucked me up is that to me like the pinnacle of an attractive woman is a porn star, right? And like which I don't know if you saw that movie Don John with what's his name? Fucking
Jordan Garrett
yeah,
Lovett.
Joseph Jordan Levitt.
Neither one of us got it right. That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Philip
But that was
Seymour
kind
Hoffman.
of
What are you from Boston?
in a country and
No,
western band.
let me tell that story real quick because let me get a moment in here
Of
for goodness sakes.
course. Of
Um,
course.
I went on a field trip. This is like the wholesome story that you're going to hear this episode. I went on a field trip with my middle son, and there was some chick that was there, and her name tag, like for whatever reason, my name tag didn't print out, so they just wrote Tom Miller on it. And it's not for some reason. There's a sex offender who's got the same name as me. So when they scan my ID card, it comes up saying please check ID, and they're like, I scanned it, and like they can see that it's not me that's the sex offender, but they're like, we can't print out the thing because there's a sex offender with the same name. So they have to print out
like a little odd to you.
yeah, and they're like, and like I get every single time, and every time there's a crowd, I'm like, I turn around to the crowd and I'm like, there's a sex offender with the same name as me, so like it's not me though. I'm not a sex offender.
That must be awful.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. But like, anyways, I get this sticky note that says my name on it that just says Tom Miller. But then like this chick is standing there, and she's got like if it was a short name, I probably wouldn't have even paid attention. But her name was like Samantha Charleston. Agatha, like it was like some super long, like it was like multiple syllables for each name. So I was like, what? I was like, what are you from? I was like, why does it have all three of your names on there? What are you from, fucking Boston? And then she like looked at me like I was crazy, and I thought it was hilarious. I still do. Like I still laugh about it when I'm like, man, I was like, I totally got her, totally burned her. But then I realized later that like everybody's name has all three names. But I yelled at her like, what are you from, fucking Boston? And then like you look, and then you're like, oh well, that's a pretty stupid thing to say, Tom. But then you like look at every actor who's from Boston, and they've all got three names. Yeah. So then V and I were doing jokes the other day when I told him that story. Like, what are you, an actress from the late 90s, like Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr.? Like, what do you got all those names? How do you have all your names there? And then V, what'd you say? What was it?
What are you, a country and western singer?
David Allan Coe. Like, stop it. Just do your first name and
Billy
be done
Ray
with it.
Cyrus.
You know what? All I could think of was David Allan Coe, which is funny because then it makes me seem like a racist. Like, oh, he only likes a racist country western singer. I know of a country western singer. Like, that's the only one I know of. But I didn't even think of Billy Ray Cyrus. But yeah, that's like my funny story, my wholesome story to break up the debauchery. But go ahead, V. Continue on with your. Where were you at?
We were talking about cuckolds, remember?
Yep.
And I was gonna say, like, what, like, okay, like, hypothetically, like I said, like a porn star to me is like the pinnacle of, like, to me that's the ideal, like, in terms of like what women should look like, or not women should look like, but like a woman that I want to be with, right? A woman that I want to be with should look like a porn star, and that's where my like standards are probably ridiculously too high for most women, is because I'm like, well, you don't have big fake tits, and that's not good enough for me. In fact, interestingly, I always, every girl that I'm ever with that like doesn't have like big tits, I usually like have a conversation with them that's like hinting at them getting a boob job. Like, have you ever thought about like, what do you think about people with fake boobs? And then I go, would you ever get fake boobs? And I actually did that to Taka Chan when I first met her. I was like, I did it like subtly. I was like, this girl that my sister knows, she just got fake boobs, and she did it because she wanted to have like higher self-esteem, and now she has like really high self-esteem, and she's like happy, and like
you gotta like really sell it for them.
Yeah,
I know
I was
this
like,
doctor.
What do you think about it? And then she was like, we're like, my culture, we don't like to face our bodies or whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, I have tattoos. So that's all I do, you know.
Wait a minute. Isn't she Japanese?
She is Japanese. That's true.
Don't they do that over there? Like, isn't that the thing? Like, where they use that tool, like the different type of tattooing, where they kind of hammer the ink
in? That's a Yakuza thing. That's a gang thing.
Yeah, that's more... gang members are cool, right?
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. But the Japanese don't see them that way. In fact, actually, here's an interesting thing about Japan.
Oh, imagine that. The Japanese population doesn't care much for the fucking notoriously violent gang that parades the streets of Japan.
When I was in Japan, I got a tattoo when I was in Japan. They have this little place in Osaka where I was at, where they it's called Amaramura. And it's basically like their version of Chinatown, but for like Americans. And
America, like, is it like a bunch of people walking around like speaking in normal, like exaggerated American accents or whatever?
okay, like they really like Americans over there, and so like you go to Amerimura, and it's like there's a Starbucks and like a McDonald's and like tattoo parlors and like American shit. But they had this tattoo parlor. It's called Chopsticks. They had this tattoo parlor there. I know, funny, right? It's like it's a freaking Chinaman. And so I go and like there, like I make this appointment. I'm like, yeah, I want to. One of my sleeve literally came from Japan, and so like I go, I want to get this tattoo. I send them the email and whatever, and they go, you need to come in for an interview first, right? And so I go in the day for my interview, and I go, like, what is this all about? Like, why do you need to meet me? And they go, oh, we just need to make sure you're not Yakuza. And like they meet me, and they go, yeah, you're not.
you're too short to be Yakuza.
First of all, you don't have the slanted eyes. That was the first giveaway.
Oh, it's just a round eye. Don't worry, guys. Put the guns down.
But back to the cuckold thing. I think I don't know how I'd feel about it, but I don't know, man. Like what if I hooked up, like this is the scenario that I think of.
No,
And
here, let me clarify. All right.
okay.
So what a woman has done in the past is the past. Okay. Ignore that. I'm
I can
talking
agree with
about from the day that you're like, hey, we're kind of hitting it off. What do you say we kind of make this like an exclusive thing where it's just you and me? Like classic back in the day. It's like, hey, how about we go steady? But like now it's like, hey, how about you stop hooking up with other guys? Like at that point where you're like, let's make
Right.
this an exclusive thing. I'll take you out to dinners every once in a while. We'll go to the movies. I'll fucking, maybe like later on down the road you move in with me. Like let's make this an exclusive arrangement. Like
Yeah.
at that point, are you like okay with them jerking off and blowing other guys? Let's just say jerking off. Let's
Yeah.
go with that. Like, are you okay with your Asian girlfriend going to some degenerate's hotel room to jerk them off angrily? Like, are you okay with that? Is that something that you would be okay with to
Oh,
pay the cable bill?
personally, no, I would not be okay with that. I like if I'm like in a committed relationship with a girl, I'm pretty possessive. I'm like jealous and possessive and like horrible. Like I'm the horrible like boyfriend because I'm always jealous of it. Like, what are you talking to that dude? Who the fuck? Like I have this like philosophy that like all guys are trying to have sex with your girlfriend or your wife. Like they just are. And like here's the thing is like a lot of girls are naive. Say girls, but I mean women too are naive. Like they just think, oh, we're just friends. And it's like, no, dude, like if a guy says, let's go to have tea or coffee or whatever, they're not asking you as friends, unless they're a fag or gay, whatever.
I'm gonna have to put another little ally sticker on you.
Like a guy, like, okay, like you go out with a girl, and if she's attractive, like it's a man, it's like in our nature to go, man, I want to have sex with this girl. Like no matter how it like how their situation is, it doesn't matter. Like all of that goes out the window because you're being fueled by these like natural instincts to go, man, I want to bang this girl. Like I don't know, whatever, whether it's like a hunter thing or whatever, like however you look at it, right? And so you get possessive, like when you like if you have those beliefs as I do, then you get more possessive because you go, everybody's trying after my meat. Everybody, I know I constantly objectify women, but what do you expect? This is me we're talking. But like, that's how it is, and like I believe that, and like I think a lot of women are naive because they go, oh, we're just friends, and I'm going, no, he's just waiting for you to break up with me so you can bang, or waiting for that moment so that he can go, I can be the shoulder to cry on, and then I'll bang you. That's what's happening. Like I've been that guy. I know. Trust me. Like, how do you
I've
think
taken my fair share of women to tea. All right.
don't know. Like that's what baffles me is when I have explained that to like ex-girlfriends and girls that I've dated. Like, look, dude, like trust me, that's not what he's doing. Like being that guy that's done that, I can tell you without a doubt that that's not what he's doing. He's not going out because he wants to talk to you. And then here's the other thing, and this is where like this should like knock it out of the park, is like why would a woman want to spend time with another guy that isn't you?
Yeah.
Like, especially if she's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or your wife. Like, why would you need to spend time with anybody that's like a male? Like, why would you need that other person in your life that's not you? To me, that doesn't make sense. Like if you're with a girl or you're in a relationship, then that other person is your best friend, right? Like wouldn't you want to spend most of your time with them?
Yeah, not
That's
jerking off a guy in a hotel room.
how I see it. I mean, I don't know. That's again, that's my opinion. And like, I don't want to be like, if I'm going to be in a committed like again, like I may be this like horrible person when I'm not in a committed relationship, but if I'm in a committed relationship, and this all comes back to the beginning, what we talked about. I've never cheated on a girl before. I've never done that. I've done all these crazy things with girls that I have, in relationships with, but like. I've never been with a girl like in a committed relationship and then cheated on her. I've always been faithful. And like that's because I like have this like view of like the sanctity of it and like we're committed. Like isn't that the whole concept of like being committed is we've made this like commitment, you know?
Well, yeah, that's the very definition of committed, right?
Definitely, yeah, exactly. So that's my perspective on it as far as like cuckolding goes. Like I don't know if I'd be okay with it. Like that's what I was getting at is like if I was dating a porn star and like she was like Rachel Starr, like my favorite porn star of all time, and she was like, "Look, I'm still gonna be in porn, but I love you." I'd be like, I'll probably." And like, here's the thing: is like I watch her porn, so how do you like what's the thing? Like at one point it's voyeurism, at another point it's cuckolding, right? And so there's this line like it's like you've entered the fantasy. So like at what point do you go, am I being cuckold or am I just like watching porn again? Because I'm with the porn star now. Like that's the logic that I like rack my brain with. I go, man, if I ever ended up with a porn star, would I be okay with her still doing it because I've watched her porn before? Like
Yeah,
it's
like what
what to
can
expect.
you imagine like her coming home and being like, "Had a great day at work today, babe."
I'd be like cool, like you ready for more?
Oh, I
I don't
can't. I got
know.
a headache.
Right. No, I don't know. I guess it's something to think about, like after objectifying women for like all this time, it's one of those things that makes you go, well, at that point of like if you were literally like here's something to think about. If you literally ended up with the object of your desire like a porn star, right? At what point do you go, well, like I can not objectify you anymore. Now I don't have to objectify you anymore.
Is this the Rachel Starr that you're talking about?
Yeah. Rachel Starr, that absolutely is. Yeah, she's getting a little older, but she still looks great.
For like like what old in the porn world is what, like 23?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people get out of porn because that's when they start getting concerned about STDs. It's like they hit 32 or 33 and they're like, maybe I should be a little concerned about STDs.
Remember when that one porn star? This is back in like the 90s. Uh, Asian porn star. So you'd probably recognize her name. I don't remember her name specifically, but she was like, I saw it on MTV some years back in the 90s. She was talking about how like, oh, the porn industry's been great to me, blah 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 blah. And she was all like talking up the porn industry, and then like immediately like transitions to like it's showing her like behind the scenes like fucking goofing off or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's like it cuts back to her sitting in the chair doing her little interview, and she goes, but then I got AIDS.
It's so messed up that we're laughing at someone who got AIDS.
Well, I mean, like you're like
You got AIDS, uh-huh.
somebody who like I don't know, like Steve Irwin when he got
Mm,
stung by the stingray. You
yeah.
could kind of you're like, oh,
Oh,
what a bummer. Like
yeah,
that
he
guy
knew.
was an international treasure.
Yeah. He definitely was.
and but then at the same time you're like, but he also did put his finger into like any butthole in the animal
Crazy.
kingdom that he came across. You know what I mean?
He
So it's like it's
knew
not a
what he was getting
surprise
into.
when Steve Irwin got stung by a stingray. I mean, you were
Right.
like bummed, but you were like, well, I don't know. Like you
Yeah.
kind of like had it coming. Um,
Yeah.
but
No, Tila Tequila isn't a porn star. The John Taylor was saying Tila Tequila, but I don't think she's a porn star.
Who?
She's just a MySpace phenomenon.
Who?
Tilla, you don't remember Tila Tequila?
I remember vaguely.
MySpace phenomena. I think she's still pretty. She's hot. I'll say that. She still looks good. She was on an episode of Between Two Ferns with Jerry Seinfeld, where
Betwixt two ferns, you mean?
yeah, he pushes Jerry Seinfeld to the side to talk to Tila Tequila. And she still looks pretty good. But she got popular like I want to say like right when MySpace came out. She was like the first she was like the first internet phenomenon, like the first Instagram model. You know how we have Instagram models now? No,
That's
this was
pretty
like before
depressing.
that. This is when it was just MySpace. That's all we had. You had your top friends, remember? And Tom, with his
Well,
thumbs
yeah.
up.
I mean, he was the guy.
Um,
He
who was
was
never he was on to you if you messaged him, but he was one of your first friends.
he was a sweet man.
Poor guy. He's out to what's his name? JT, Justin Timberlake.
Wait, what?
MySpace is owned by Justin Timberlake now. It's like a music site now, I think, from like music artists and shit.
Oh, I don't know enough about that. I'll have to take your
JT,
word
old.
for it.
Hmm.
Yeah, John Taylor said Tila Tequila. That's the chick's name. Well, I guess that's probably it. I've picked your brain enough about
Coors.
whores.
Yeah.
Um,
This industry.
I think we answered all the questions from the fan in the audience. Um, I had fun tonight. I had a good night. I don't know about. I'm sure like the people who are still here. I would assume
So
they had fun. But
talking about all this stuff, I enjoyed myself too. I agree. It was good. It was a good one.
so what? I hope you assholes did your homework and brought somebody and told somebody about you had me a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
No, I actually yeah, I told a friend of mine or whatever. Like I told most of my friends about it. None of them fucking showed up. V's the only one who showed up, and I'm like, hey, you're welcome. You're the new host with me, I guess. Um, yeah, but yeah, tell your friends if you had fun tonight or whatever. Share and share alike. Hit the if you think we deserve it, give us the thumbs up. If you think we did a shitty job, if you hated V's stories about uh whore banging, then hit the
And
thumbs down or whatever.
Leslie talked about corona contravirus.
Yeah, we really didn't talk enough about it. We talked about viruses, I guess, plenty. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to avoid getting disease, the CDC's guidance is to just wash your hands and not go to China. That was
Yeah, don't go
legitimately
to
their
China.
advice. But you know what? I do want to say something about the virus sharing or the virus thing. And it ties in a little bit to economic systems because we like to pick on communism here quite a bit.
Mhm.
The one thing I did want to say is, as I was looking at statistics about the Black Plague and the bubonic plague, as it's called, either they're interchangeable in the terminology. Is that communism in 100 years killed what was it? Five
This is like
times as many people as the Black Plague did
right. Hmm.
in in five. No, I'm sorry. It killed twice as many people in 100 years than the Black Plague did in 500 years.
Right.
So like you kind of have to like at this point, I don't want to push economic policy on anybody and be like, hey man, like maybe you need to rethink your political ideology. But like when your political ideology kills more people, like twice as many people than something that's called the Black Plague, maybe like you need to start thinking about considering alternatives. Now,
Right.
people naturally say, "Well, communism, socialism aren't the same thing," but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something that I thought was pretty interesting when I read it. The bubonic plague killed anywhere between 25,000 or I'm sorry, just depending on what you take, because obviously those records weren't kept back then. It was anywhere between like 25,000 and a couple 100,000. They say that it was like 60% of the European population was killed by the Black Plague, And that was one of the things that I really studied today was the Black Plague and the plague doctors. And fun fact is, when you think of the Black Plague and you think of the chicken mask, right, the
Yeah,
bird mask or whatever,
thing's so
uh,
creepy.
yeah, the thing about that is when the Black Plague started. Here's where we're going to talk about like the real stuff or whatever. We're talking like, hey,
Yeah,
by the way,
at the end of the show.
we were supposed to talk about some shit today. Um, that didn't come around until so the Black Plague made its way to Europe in the 14th century, right, the 1300s, and by the time and it came in through Italy, it came in on a boat that was on a trade route from China, as it were. No surprise there, right? It came over from China, and when the boat got there to the Italy docks, the Italian dock workers were like, "You cannot be here with those boils and those blisters and whatever is going on with your
Shit.
like your ship. Everyone on your ship is dead, except for like two or three of you, and you're all disgusting. You've got like boils and shit on you." Um, so you gotta go, and like, but the problem was like their interaction with one another was enough for them to get the disease, and then also like they believed that the rats could have perhaps come off of the ship, and and then spread to the Europeans. And the problem with the bubonic plague was it was so very contagious. And on top of that, that same time period, they think when they started digging up exhuming bodies, they found that some of the bodies had anthrax spores. So not only did these people have the bubonic plague, but they also had anthrax at the same time. So like
Jesus.
Europe was just ravaged by disease, and it wasn't necessarily just the bubonic plague, but people attributed it to that. And Poland, historically, Poland is like the people who are like, don't come here, like don't come and ruin Poland, which is why Poland is like this conservative, like, you know, secret fort or whatever, where they're like, no girls allowed, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're
yeah.
like, no, you're not coming in here with that disease. And they had very secure borders, and they were like saved from these diseases. And likewise, they are saved from immigration. And if you look at the statistics about radical Islamic terrorism, Poland has 0, and the rest of Europe is like, it looks like the Minesweeper map. Like when you hit one of them.
Right.
But yeah, like Poland was the only one that was spared from all that. But the bubonic plague or whatever, it still killed less people than communism did, and the bubonic plague lasted for 500 years. It wasn't until like the 19th century that it finally stopped, and it wasn't until the 17th century that these plague doctors showed up with their bird masks.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was they wanted to have something in front of their mouth that and nose that they could stuff with aroma, like something with an aroma on it, so they didn't
Yeah.
have to smell the dead bodies, but also it was supposed to protect them from, it was supposed to like filter out the disease. So if they were to walk in, and plus you'll see like pictures of these plague doctors with sticks, they could go up and like poke people to see if they were dead. Like that was the reason for the
Yeah.
sticks. And then also to be like to touch people, and like if they had boils, they could pop the boils and shit. And like the funny thing, oh, it's not funny, it's actually pretty horrible. These
It's probably
doctors,
funny though.
it's like the opposite of funny, but these doctors, when they were trying to figure out, because I mean back then science was nearly non-existent, um they didn't know how it was spread, they didn't know how to treat it, so they tried everything under the sun. Like they were dumping snake venom into the people's mouths, they were popping the blisters, and like, oh, you're good because we just popped the blister, it's not going to get into your body.
Yeah, you're good.
Then they were like, they were doing bloodletting back then, because they
Oh
thought
yeah.
that any kind of sickness was an imbalance of blood versus sweat versus whatever, saliva or whatever. So they were like, it was really like just a lot of guesswork, and none of it worked, and no one knew how it was spread, because the incubation period was anywhere from like 0 days to 14 days or whatever. So like they couldn't isolate anybody, and they couldn't figure it out. That's why it spread so quickly. And if you thought you could get away from the cities to like get away from the bubonic plague, also the animals were getting the bubonic plague. So like
Right.
you would get sick from the animals too. So no matter what you did, you were going to die from the bubonic plague, except for 0.2% of the white population. Nonsense. I don't know what the Klan is pushing these days, but like it's certainly not like, oh well, white people are superior based on like no particular type of science or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's those are just some fun factoids about the Black Plague,
Mhm.
and also like something to discourage you from voting for Bernie Sanders in the 2020 election.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, that's my tip to you, fellow American voters.
Right.
Be mindful of the bubonic plague and uh, hit that like button. Like after I say the most fucked up thing, like, and I do some partisan shit, yeah, and then hit that like button, and yeah, this is where we're gonna get those down votes. But yeah, share with your friends if you had fun today, if you had fun listening to V talk about his shenanigans in Germany, if you had fun listening to the minor conversation that we had about how to prevent getting AIDS from butchering a monkey or from chopping monkey meat or whatever. If you like that stuff,